Rocky, Irwin Winkler, and Robert Chardoff, producers.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another month, another year of Picture This. 1976, a huge Oscar year. And I have a huge amount of respect for this guy next to me, even though he's wearing the Rivals hat. Chad, welcome back to the show. My co-host with the most. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, Dylan. I'm pushing 36. All I want to do is just go the distance while I still got a chance. Just want to go the distance, okay?
Okay, so. I got you. How you feeling? 1976. This is a heavy one. This is a big one.
Just like looking, if you haven't seen like what the slate, I'm talking to the audience. If you haven't seen what the slate is, it's like packed. Okay.
Yeah.
We don't normally get to a year where you look at it. I mean, you think you should, where you're like, this year has like some of the greatest movies like ever. And then sometimes we'll get to a year. Like I remember when we did Sunset Boulevard and All About Eve, I'm like, those two are best picture movies. And yet you just have to choose one. And I feel like we're going to have like dilemmas like that here. So I'm very interested to see what we all pick.
There's more of us. Oh, we should bring one more in. Yeah, this is going to be one of those rare episodes I think that's going to end in not just a coin flip, because there's going to be 3 people, but maybe our first ever wheel spin. Because if we all have a different number 1, and all of our number 2s and 3s are different, then we might end up in a very unknown, unfamiliar territory. But to join us on this very notable episode, I mean, he's done a lot of the heavy hitters of the 70s. He did 72, he did 74, I believe he also did 80, which is right after this decade, and a few others along the line as well, both the 40s and the 90s. He's covered every area there can be of this show, but we wanted to have him on for the year of the upset because we know this is a very contentious year because everyone has their horses in the race, but we do love all of these to some extent. So I'm very excited to talk to the man who has but some big posters behind him as well to represent these titles. It is returning to the show for his 6th appearance, I believe. It is Dan Skip Allen. How's it going, Dan? 7th. Which one am I missing? You get 3 Godfathers. You have a Raging Bull year, Casablanca.
42, and then 90. That's 6, right?
Oh, he did Dance with Wolves year.
Yeah, that was one of the Godfathers, though. So it's 3 Godfathers.
Oh, yeah.
And then 42 or 43.
Either
way, you've broken the record for whoever's been on the show the most, aside from Chad and myself.
I thought it was 6, but maybe it is 7. Maybe it is 6. I don't
know. It's okay though, Dan. You're the most regular guest on the show, so how do you feel about that?
How do you? Episode, I bug you guys all the time. I bother you guys all the time. But when I saw the list of the upsets, I was just like, I'll give you my firstborn child. Chad, you can have 2 children if I could be on this episode. I got to do this one. I got to do 76. I've been begging you guys for months to do 76. This is a massive year for me. I love all these movies. Still one movie I didn't see, which is, there's always that movie that you didn't see. But now I've been bothering you guys. Well, I apologize for being such a pain in the backside to you guys. Because I wanted to do this one so bad,
Yeah, well, and it's great because you're actually going to be our last guest for the series because everyone out there pretty much knows by now, but I'm going to be on the 7 Cs, which means it'll be very hard to lock down some guests. So, Dan, you are our last guest for a little while on the show, which is going to be very exciting too. I mean, we had a great episode with Stacy and Matt and Carly, and we're very excited now to initiate another year of the upset. And as you said, it is a year of the upset, but it is one of those years where like the winner is still a very beloved, well-regarded movie, even if it's not necessarily the prestige favorite. But then there's also so many classics from other directors to where like any of these films winning could be seen as an upset in its own way, which makes it such a unique year. But let me rattle off what this slate is, just so we can finally get into talking about the elephant in the room, or the 5 elephants, if you will. These 5 monumental films. We have All the President's Men, Bound for Glory, Network, Rocky, and Taxi Driver. So if you all are out there being like, whoa, which is my favorite of those? I'm kind of in the same boat. I have a favorite, but it's close. This is definitely one of those heavy hitting years where I think everything is in contention for the best, except for maybe one, but only because I think it doesn't have that cultural impact. And even then, there's great things about it that we'll talk about. So, Chad, what did you think in general of this slate? I know you talked a little bit about how much of a Sophie's Choice, ironic because the director of Sophie's Choice did one of these films, but a Sophie's Choice that this kind of slate would be.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, because normally you might see like a bunch of films or, some films in a slate that just aren't talked about. And so it feels like we're like informing people of these, like, here's some movies that you might not remember, but were Best Picture nominees. Like a friend one time was chatting about a specific movie, and I was like, "You mean Best Picture nominee movie?" I can't remember what the movie was.
Good Night and Good Luck. I remember that comment.
That's it. Yeah, and and they were like, "Oh, it did?" Like, yeah. So it's kind of like that with one of these movies. I feel like no one really talks about ever, but then the rest, if you would have told someone who just doesn't know what everything won, like Network won Best Picture. If you would have said that, someone probably would have been like, "Oh yeah, probably did actually," and then you'd go, "No, it didn't." But one of those things.
Yeah, and it's funny because the one that isn't really talked about started becoming talked about at the end of last year because of another movie that came out. So it's like even that film, people were like, "Did you know?" And that this film existed. And now, of course, we're talking about it in context with the other four. But yeah, it is just one of those slates which like. If you put any of these, I would say 4 at number 1, like I think everyone would kind of be like okay with it. I don't think anything's going to be controversial. If you put a certain film at number 1, only the one that isn't like regarded as well as the others. But even then, like I wouldn't begrudge anyone for putting a Hal Ashby film at number 1. Like it's just one of those things where we're not just getting 5 great films, but 5 great directors, some great stars. I mean, some of these are star-making vehicles for some of the greatest of all time: Sylvester Stallone, Jodie Foster. So it's really going to be fascinating to kind of see where this goes and then where this conversation takes us. But we are going to set the scene, though, a little bit. Dan, where were you in 1976? You were a baby, right?
I was 3 years old. I didn't see these movies in 1976. I saw them a few years later. Like I said, in 1980, when we did 80, I was conscious enough to remember movies in 1980, and Rocky and All the President's Men were movies that I remember watching when I was 7 years old, whatever it was. I know. Should I have been watching them movies at that age? I don't know. But if they were on TV, I was watching them because TV 38 in Boston, they had all kinds of old movies. Well, at that time, they were relatively new movies, but they had various genres and various things that were going on, And so, yes, I was 3 years old. And but these movies, at least 4 of these movies, are very, very, very memorable in my mind. I've watched them dozens of times.
Yeah, I can just imagine like Dan's family getting back from like the grocery store and Dan just like punching the shit out of the steaks and then drinking the raw eggs, and everyone's like, "What has this kid been watching?" And they're like, "Rocky." No, but I would say some of these are very great time capsules also of the time period. I think is important. So it's always why we do set the scene of what's going on at the time, because this kind of mirrors a lot of the last episode Chad and I did for a lot of reasons, but one of them being kind of coming out of such a dark time. This slate comes out of the Vietnam War, and then the last slate we did came out of like World War II. So it's a lot of like that kind of response to a past time, which is where we'll get with when we talk about it with the upset, why that film in particular won against some of the ones that are a little bit more topical to politics and current events. Same as American in Paris. Why did that one win over these darker, heavier things? Because maybe it's just the one that makes us feel the most hoorah, feel good, But Chad, what are the what's going on in 1976 that's worth mentioning, just so we can kind of set the scene?
Yeah. 1976, the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights becomes effective. We need to actually enforce this worldwide one day, I guess, right?
Yeah.
The UN calls for an independent Palestinian state, but the United States vetoes it. Way to go, us, right? Seymour Cray's Cray Research released the Cray 1, which is the first commercially developed supercomputer. And then I wrote, this scared me. Bradford Bishop murders 5 of his family members in Bethesda, Maryland, but was never caught. So that's why that scared me.
Close to home.
Apple Computer Company is founded. There you go. The U.S. Treasury reintroduces the $2 bill on Thomas Jefferson's birthday. I think it was like his 233rd, to celebrate the bicentennial of the United States. That's because it was 200 years after the U.S. became a nation.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think
Right?
about that. Yeah, 1776.
I have a friend
Yeah.
who collects them. Still, he's got like $500 and $2 bills.
Wow.
Yeah, I have at least one. I think I have two.
I would keep one in my when I was serving in New York City. I would keep one in my server booklet just as like a good luck thing. And then if I had ever had a kid with like a birthday, I had a bunch of them, so I would sometimes give them out and stuff. But
Oh, that's
yeah.
nice.
I know it's a cool thing to have because you don't see them a lot. But I had enough that I felt good parting with some. But I still have one that I carry around for good luck. So
Nice. The Atari game Breakout was released. The U.S. Supreme Court rules that the death penalty is not inherently cruel or unusual, which is complete bullshit. The first class of women are inducted into the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. More Maryland news for you. Caitlyn Jenner wins the gold medal in the men's decathlon at the Summer Olympics. That was a different time. Wasn't transitioned yet. The Viking 1 lands on Mars and takes the famous Face of Mars photo. You've probably seen it if you don't know what it is right offhand. The first known outbreak of the Ebola virus occurs in Zaire. Jimmy Carter wins the presidential election. Rest in peace. The Copyright Act of 1976 extends copyright duration for an additional 19 years. And then the first laser printer is introduced by IBM.
wow, a lot of stuff going on. Yeah, big year for
stuff.
yeah.
In there.
Yeah, big year for technology. Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, it's really, really cool. Chad, of course, we gotta go to a more somber note of some deaths of that year, but also a lighter note of some births that you might have to mention. Then, of course, some albums, as always.
Yeah, well, there's more births than deaths that I got, so here we go. Ryan Reynolds, Reese Witherspoon, Luke Bryan, Candace Cameron Burr, Chadwick Boseman, another great Chadwick, also rest in peace. Cillian Murphy, Blake Shelton, Chester Bennington, Rick Ross, Benedict Cumberbatch, Joe Gatto. Is actually all the
Inglourious Bastards.
all of the Impractical Jokers were born in 1976, it looks like. That's probably why they're such good friends. Gabriel Iglesias, Saul Volcano, Jonathan Brandis, Peyton Manning, Brian Quinn, Ja Rule, Alicia Silverstone, James Murray, Isla Fisher, Jaleel White, John Bernthal, Anna Faris, Freddie Prinze Jr., a.k.a. Mr. Buffy Summers, Colin Farrell, Charlie Day, and Rashida Jones.
Wow. Heavy lineup right there.
Heavy.
A lot of great people there. Deaths. Agatha Christie. Howard Hughes.
Wow.
Fritz Lang.
Wow.
Werner Heisenberg. Inspired another Heisenberg. And then some picture this winners. Lee J. Cobb and Rosalind Russell.
That's right. Yeah, pretty monumental names. I mean, gosh, Fritz Lang and Agatha Christie, and wow, right. Yeah. Cool. Any albums birthed out of 1976? I'm sure there were. 70s are a great decade for music.
Yeah, I always look forward to this part. I always look forward to this part to see if I like these artists or not, or if I even know what these albums are. Half the time, I don't know what these albums are.
I normally just pick like what seem to be like the best quality. I haven't like necessarily heard a lot of them, but some of them I own. So I have.
That's why I know you know what you're talking about when you do this. Dad knows what he's doing.
He's got the proof.
Yeah. Correct. All right. So, Songs in the Key of Life by Stevie Wonder. I thought I might own this one, but it didn't. Unfortunately, we have Hotel California by the Eagles. This is my father-in-law's album.
I was gonna say you could just end there. That's it. That's the only album that matters. I'm kidding.
A great one. And then we have Station to Station by David Bowie. Great, right?
Yeah. No, I'm putting my hands up for all of them because
Ramones.
Ramones by the Ramones.
Yeah, there you go.
Those are the ones that I have.
Nice.
But the rest I have written down are, and I was surprised I didn't have this because I'm wearing the hat. Boston by Boston.
Yeah.
I need to get that album immediately because it rules. And then we also have 2112 by Rush, Desire by Bob Dylan, The Modern Lovers by the Modern Lovers, Hejira by Joni Mitchell, and A Trick of the Tail by Genesis, which was back during the best part of Genesis when Peter Gabriel was there.
Well,
No
I'll
offense
argue that.
to what's his name?
I'm a massive Phil Collins fan.
All right.
Invisible Touch. Oh, it's one of my favorite albums of all time, Chad.
All right, you know what? You know what? Maybe you're my Apollo Creed now. Just kidding.
Ooh.
Ah,
Ooh.
okay. I
Does
love
that make me
Invisible
Paulie's robot from Rocky 4?
No,
Okay.
you're Mickey.
Okay.
Come on.
Oh, hey.
Come on, Chad. You got it.
Well, there you go. Births, deaths, albums, so many great cultural things going on, and some not great cultural things going on at the time. But movies, obviously a big part of culture at the time, so we always like to come with a few 1976 movies that didn't make the cut that we thought may have been worthy enough to make it. But I would say the ones that made it are pretty good, so I don't necessarily think we need to replace many. I think the kind of commonly agreed upon one is that maybe most people would sub out kind of the more forgettable fifth movie with Carrie is the one I hear a lot of. People saying Carrie should have been the fifth nominee.
Wow. What a lineup that would be. If
Yeah.
Carrie was
But otherwise, like I think I'm pretty happy with the lineup. But there are some notable films. Dan, do you have any notable films for
No,
1976?
I always let you guys do this because I know you guys have a list, and I just said, you know what? I'll stick with the 5 and talk ad nauseum about them.
Nice. All right. Well, Chad, take it away. What do you got for 76 other movies?
Yeah, so I just got a few notable ones, and then one Best Picture worthy.
Okay.
So
I wonder if it's the one I said. We'll see.
maybe. So I have notable films are Robin and Marion, The Bad News Bears, Alfred Hitchcock's Family Plot, Silent Movie, The Omen, one of my wife's favorite horror movies, The Outlaw Josie Wales, Squirm, which is a really fun horror movie that many people haven't heard about, I don't think. Bugsy Malone, John Carpenter's Assault on Precinct 13, Alice Sweet Alice, A Star is Born. It's another Star is Born.
That version is hit and miss, I guess.
Still notable because it's like a remake of
Yeah.
the classic movie. The Pink Panther Strikes Again. The hell? Okay, never mind. I wrote something else in here that shouldn't be there. King Kong, The Town That Dreaded Sundown, and yes, my Best Picture worthy is Carrie.
Nice.
I probably would have substituted it actually for one of these, but I'm also not mad that at any of these 5.
If there's a physical media of the Town That Dreaded Sundown, either like a little chintzy physical media companies put that out. Oh God, what's it called? I can't think of the name of the company. I know there's a physical media of that.
Nice.
Begins with a D, maybe.
Oh, we'll have to check it out.
Vestron put that out. I believe you could probably find that on Vestron, but
Vestron, cool. Well, check it. No, we love it. Any physical media plug we love. Chad said all the great ones. De Palma did have a great year. He also had Obsession that year, so Obsession and Carrie both coming out that year. Big year for him. I don't know if Chad said Marathon Man, but also worth noting.
What?
And then the original Midway. And what else did I have that Chad? The original Freaky Friday with Jodie Foster. A big year for her, obviously.
Yeah.
As we'll talk about her very
Marathon
soon.
Man was in there that year and didn't get into 5. Wow.
I know, right? It was a heavy year. It was a tough year. But alas, we have made it to the year we have to talk about. In terms of the upset, it's hard to look at precursors because back then the PGA and Critics' Choice didn't exist. The BAFTA was also weird because certain films were qualifying for the next year because of the release date system in the UK. So like Rocky and Network were nominated a year later, and all of them lost because One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was nominated against some of them, so that beat them. So it was really hard to gauge what like the front runner was. Rocky winning the Globe was considered a big shock, and people were like, well, it's because the Globes pick all the popular films, but then it ended up actually winning the Oscar, and we saw Taxi Driver didn't even get nominated for the Globe. So Taxi Driver was actually the big surprise nominee on the day, believe it or not, for the Oscars. People weren't expecting Taxi Driver to get nominated. It did. And Rocky, people were thinking could have a shot after the Golden Globe win, but we're still a little bit more convinced for Network or All the President's Men. I did a lot of reading on the upset, so we can talk about it now. We won't talk about our thoughts on the movies, obviously, but just kind of what the upset was. A lot of people were obviously, thinking it was going to be Network or All the President's Men. And I bring up our last episode, Chad, because it's kind of similar in the terms of like, You have like the really popular crowd pleaser feel good movie Rocky, which is like the American in Paris. And then you have like the two more darker, a little bit more drab and melancholic films like Network and All the President's Men, which are kind of like their streetcar named Desire and Place in the Sun. Also worth a comparison because Network is the next film after A Streetcar Named Desire to be nominated and win in 3 of the 4 acting categories, and it would happen only one more time afterwards in Everything Everywhere All at Once. So it wins for Best Actor, Actress, and Supporting Actress, which is the same thing that happened with Streetcar Named Desire. It won Best Actress, Supporting Actress, and Best Supporting Actor. It did not win for Marlon Brando. So its Network was kind of like the Streetcar Named Desire. It was a big acting player. It got so many nominations. It was winning so many things throughout the night because of its actors. Then All the President's Men was kind of seen as like the Place in the Sun, where everyone thought it was going to win director and screenplay. But the big shock came when it lost director. So John Avildsen won for Rocky, and that's kind of when everyone was like, oh, is this going to win? But Rocky only won director and editing. So after Network had swept all the acting awards, everyone's like, okay, I think it's going to be Network. But then it ended up being Rocky, and I remember a lot of people just reading articles from the time were so pissed off because they were like, this is more about blockbusters and populist, because blockbusters were still early at the time. Like Star Wars hadn't come out, Jaws had just come out, so like Jaws had just invented the idea of the blockbuster to where everyone wasn't used to like this big crowd pleasing, especially in the 70s, because you have Godfather, you have like these kind of darker films. Cuckoo's Nest wins the year before, so it was a bit of a shock to see like this more crowd pleasing kind of feel good film underdog sports story win. Also because a sports story had never won before, because Chariots of Fire was not until the 80s. So a big shock for a lot of people in the room. But I think now with time and with culture, I think a lot of people would look back and not be necessarily surprised that Rocky was considered an upset, or they would be surprised that it was considered an upset, because it'd be like, how is that an upset? But I do think it's because at the time, All the President's Men and Network were seen as like the two big juggernauts going at it, and it just so happened that Rocky made its way to the end. And it could have been the same thing as American Paris, where it's just the one that people just wanted to watch because it made them feel the best, whereas the other ones are a little bit more intellectual, a little bit more current, where they don't want to dive into like the current politics of the time or Vietnam or any of that stuff. So they kind of wanted to go for something a little bit more inspiring, a little bit more upbeat, a little bit more fun, I guess, even though Rocky still has, we'll talk about it, some heavier stuff as well. So very interesting upset, though. It's very interesting to see how this is considered an upset because of just how well Rocky's legacy has come. And it's one of those cases where I think the upset actually helped it and its legacy. Like, I think we'll still get a few sequels regardless, but I think the fact that it is such a prestige franchise is a lot due to the fact that it won the Oscar, because this is a huge thing, especially for a film we'll talk about as low budgeted and as much of an underdog in its filmmaking as this was. But Dan, any thoughts on
spawned a second franchise?
Exactly, yeah, it has 2 franchises from it, yeah. And those films were also up for Oscar contention. Like Sylvester Stallone almost won an Oscar for that film as well.
Should have won.
I would agree with you. But Dan, any thoughts on that upset? Just without giving thoughts on the films themselves, but
the upset's a double-fold upset. The fact of the matter is, it's an upset because it won Best Picture, but the guy that basically spearheaded this movie doesn't win anything.
Right. Yeah.
Doesn't win anything. How does that happen? How does Stallone come away with nothing after?
Yeah.
How does that happen? So I mean, it's a huge upset in two ways.
Mm-hmm. And then the other guy that people considered overdue, which was Sidney Lumet, because he didn't get it for 12 Angry Men, he didn't get it for The Verdict, he didn't get it for Dog Day Afternoon. They were like, he'll finally get his Oscar here, and he also didn't win for director. It went to John Avildsen. I think Avildsen was a bigger upset, than Rocky itself. I think at the end of the day for director. But Chad, any thoughts on that upset?
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting just to see like how the Academy Awards like evolves over time, but also kind of like stays the same a lot of the time, where we just talked about a movie like 20 years earlier, or like more like 25 years earlier, that did something similar to this. And then, a little bit later where you're talking about more of like a popular, fan kind of favorite movie winning, although whether you might be able to see a little bit more like you're talking about like prestige, actual like quality filmmaking in it. It's not just like something that is just crowd pleasing and that's it, but like it's like one of those things where you have the other ones that are like I don't know what I'm saying, but I'm just talking about like it is. I can see how it's was surprising then, but then
Right.
now, you know, because of the Best Picture win and because it's such a crowd pleasing movie, like you can see how like Rocky is probably the most well-known, like culturally significant one of the bunch because of its, you know, like maybe like some of the other ones might be like significant, like All the President's Men is something that you'll probably get on like a school list to watch at school, but it's not something that people generally will go like that's like one of my favorite movies of all time. I think generally, even some people might say that, but like it is one of those things where, yeah, there you go. Well, you know, we'll talk about the actual quality of them, but you know, it is. I'm saying it's surprising, but also not surprising. Like I can see both sides to it.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I also think it's one of those things where it's like it's an upset, but it's not upsetting because of the legacy it did pave. It's kind of the inverse of Star Wars, where people are surprised nowadays that Star Wars lost, but it was also like at the time it wasn't. No one knew it was going to be as big a franchise hit. Whereas nowadays, like people are not surprised that Rocky won because it ended up being such a big franchise hit. You know, I think people would have been more surprised if it lost in retrospect if they were looking back on it. You know,
yeah.
82, like First Blood, where that doesn't even get nominated. And you think about First Blood, you say, wow, this is an important movie. And then it spawned all these relatively crappy sequels.
Yeah, it's very interesting the 70s how it works because a lot of the times also the ones that were a little bit darker, heavier, like Godfather, those won also. So like they were also big box office successes. So we're kind of going into a weird territory where you have these blockbusters and it's like, are we going to award them or are we going to just let the money speak for them? Kind of like how nowadays it's like, well, Barbie's not going to win. It made all the money it needed. Wicked, same thing. Like it made all the money. That's its award. And you see that with like Star Wars and Jaws. But then here you see the biggest film of the year win with Rocky, and then you see it again with like Dances with Wolves. So it's like, you know, it feels very back and forth in terms of like what they're, you know, considering the best. But that's what's also really cool is it's like a capsule of that time. So, you know, at that time, this is what they awarded the best picture for whatever reason
the 80s
may be.
Was all full of artsy fartsy movies winning.
Right, because
none of the big blockbusters could win.
Right, probably because of the 70s, because everyone was like, well, we can't be that predictable, you know, we can't give E.T. the win, you know, like, I don't know.
But even nowadays, though, you still get people saying like, you know, I don't watch the Oscars because they don't nominate or they at least don't give the wins to movies that people have actually seen. Like it's always like something else that, you know, is the artsy kind of thing rather than the movie that I love. Like, you know, like I wasn't a huge fan of Challengers, but that was a big populist movie that everyone I know loved and it didn't get a nomination. So it's like, if that had gotten a nomination, I think a lot of more people would have watched.
Yeah, and then you also have then the Oppenheimers and Everything Everywhere All at Once that kind of are the big success stories too. So it's really fascinating how the Oscars can be so hot and cold in terms of what they like consistency. It's
year,
very
from one year to the next.
Exactly. It's very inconsistent. But a few little more tidbits about the ceremony, and then we can finally talk about the movies, just because there were so many records broken with this franchise. Both Network and All President's Men, as I said, won 4 Oscars, but lost Best Picture, Editing, and Director. So it was really spread out in terms of the above the line. It was like 3 films were winning all the above the line categories, but it was so split. Network, as I said, became the second film to win 3 acting Oscars. Everything Everywhere All at Once would be the third, and only 3 to do that. It was also, I think... what was I going to say? Oh, the first posthumous film acting winner for Peter Finch, who had a heart attack, I believe, right before nominations were announced. So he was alive when the film came out, but then died before the awards. So it's a little different than Heath Ledger, who had passed away before the movie even came out. But either way, those are the 2 posthumous acting winners, and I believe they're the only 2. With only 5 minutes and 2 seconds of screen time, Beatrice Straight also set a record for the shortest performance ever to win an Oscar for Network, and she also holds that record today. No one has ever surpassed her. Even Judi Dench in Shakespeare in Love had more time than her, so that is really, really cool. Also, Paddy Chayefsky won his 3rd solo writing Oscar for Network, which is a record that remains to this day. No one has ever won 3 writing awards by themselves. Since Paddy Chayefsky. Sylvester Stallone became the first person, this is what Dan was saying, to since Orson Welles for Citizen Kane, to receive nominations for writing and acting and lose both categories. So
and how is
usually
he not a producer on Rocky? How is he not a producer in the movie?
He needed to put his money in someone else's hands. He couldn't be a producer.
I don't get that. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, well, he didn't produce. He didn't put any money into it. I assume is what it was. I think it was he needed. Well, we'll talk about it when we get to Rocky. But like it was about trying to get someone to pick up the script and have faith in the project and fund it. Because producers is more about the money aspect, I guess. But yeah, it's very interesting though that he just goes away empty-handed for that movie when it is like the big winner of the night. Another thing which is huge is Lena Wertmuller becomes the first woman ever nominated for Best Director for an international film called Seven Beauties. So this is a really, really cool achievement. It showed that women could get nominated in this category. We wouldn't see it again for a little while. I believe maybe Catherine Bigelow is the next one we see get nominated. I have to fact check that. No, you know what? It might be Sofia Coppola for Lost in Translation. Maybe I have to check if she got nominated for that. But it wasn't until like the next century we would see another woman get nominated. So it's kind of sad, but also cool that it broke down the dam, if you will. And then with the Best Original Song win for Evergreen, Barbra Streisand became the first woman to be awarded Best Song, which is really, really cool. Nice. So it's something that we've seen a lot of nowadays. Billie Eilish, Lady Gaga. So very cool for Barbra Streisand. But that is it for the history. A very historic year, obviously.
Because she wrote it, right? Not sang it?
She wrote and sang it, yeah. But yeah, she wrote the song.
We do have Judy Garland, but she didn't write
it. Correct. For Over the Rainbow, yeah. She did not write it, yeah. But yeah, very, very cool history. Women breaking down barriers. Network making history. Rocky defying history. So very, very cool in general. But I think it's time we move on to the movies because we've been talking a half hour. I think we're ready to talk about all the great things about All the President's Men. The first film here on our list. Chad, tell us very briefly about All the President's Men.
Sure. All the President's Men, directed by Alan J. Pakula, written by William Goldman, cinematography by Gordon Willis, music by David Shire, starring Dustin Hoffman, Robert Redford, Jack Warden, Martin Balsam, Hal Holbrook, Jason Robards, Jane Alexander, Stephen Collins, Ned Beatty, Meredith Baxter, and F. Murray Abraham. Synopsis: two reporters from the Washington Post work hard to uncover secrets behind the Watergate scandal, based on the novel All the President's Men by Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward, a.k.a. Woodstein.
Yes, Woodstein. Love it. Yeah, like I saw both Dan and I's faces when you said F. Murray Abraham, but yeah, he's in there. There's a lot of like really cool little supporting roles here and there in this film. It is a very ensemble heavy film in a way that a lot of journalism films are, because it is all about the teamwork and the passing of information and just going through sources, and it's a very active film in terms of its performances and its characters and just how much it's covering with so little time, which we talked about the current events at the time. I mean, this is one of those movies that feels like so topical now, of course, because we see this mirrored throughout politics and history, but like at the time, like I couldn't imagine this movie being in the audience, seeing this movie at the time where Watergate is still so fresh, and like the politics, it's still like one of the main conversation points. It would feel like kind of like when we saw the Apprentice movie last year, but even then, it's like that was much more about like this person's rise to where they became, whereas this is more like we're covering what just happened in the news, and a lot of the time the argument becomes, is it too soon to be covering this? But at the same time, it's like, if you're just going for a very matter-of-fact approach like this, like it's never a bad time. Like tell the story, get the news out there, because then it can transcend time like we see now, and now it is a timeless work because of it. So some movies it's not good. Some movies it's a little too soon to rush into telling a story. But Dan, I want to throw it over to you first. You're our guest, and I know you said you kind of tipped your cap earlier that you like this movie very much. So Dan, tell us, what do you love about All the President's Men?
Yeah, on this particular channel, they don't do it to where I could put a thing underneath my name, but some channels do. And I'm actually a film critic, and I'm an owner and a editor and a head film critic of my own website. And it just shows you how important journalism is, how important great journalism is, how important it is to hold people accountable for doing something wrong, and putting the blame where the blame deserves to be put on people that are doing crooked things. And yeah, are you a crook, Richard Nixon? You damn sure are a crook. And these guys, Woodward and Bernstein, portrayed in this movie phenomenally by Dustin Hoffman and Robert Redford, two of my favorite actors of all time. I watch this movie at least once a year for like decades now. That's how much I love this movie, and just all the minutia that goes into it. How they had to go finagle the lady in the house to give ideas. Well, Baker, this one wasn't it. Well, how do you know? We got this one. Well, how'd you guys get that name? Yeah, just be talking to these people and finagling information. One day the FBI guys, hey, come on over, let's talk. And then the next time, I don't want to be seen with you guys, and then Robards, why won't anybody go on record? It's just like so hard. Journalism is such a hard thing, especially back then, because it was such a hot button topic. Watergate and Nixon and all this kind of stuff was such a hot button topic. And the fact of the matter is, 4 years after this happened, they had a movie out. So that tells you these guys cranked this book out fast, and then they made this movie very quickly, and they couldn't have ended up with a better cast, and just all the like in the post-credit scenes, you see that, and it's giving you the information, and you're getting all that information. I love that they're using a typewriter for the information, and it's just like, oh, don't take this one out on a date and you can get this information out of getting this one. I'm not going to your house you didn't get that. Am I calling 4 people on the phone? I didn't get that. It's like, this is what journalism is. This is what a movie about journalism should be. It just happens to be one of the most controversial topics in the history of the United States, Watergate. And I love this movie. I literally watch it once or twice a year. That's how much I love this movie.
And it's one thing that I feel like it's such a dense topic that, like, for me, I'd never seen this film. I'm also like, I know a lot about Watergate, but I'm not as like tapped in, because obviously I didn't live through it. I didn't live in like the decade after to really absorb it as directly. Like for me, it was like 9/11 was the big thing that was like always a part of our learning and our culture growing up in the 2000s in elementary school and stuff. So I didn't have Watergate as that like kind of parallel, but I do think this is also one of those great movies that you could watch over and over again just to kind of get a better grasp on the material. Like, it's one of those things, yes, it's meant to entertain. Yes, there is a story. Yes, there is editing and there's a plot, obviously, but it's more of just a really great education vessel, because I feel like a lot of people nowadays might not know a lot of the ins and outs, and not just the events of, but like the turmoil after and the attitudes and just the way the media contrasts with the truth as well. The idea that every scene there's a TV on in the background and everything's great. Nixon, 4 more years, yay. And everything going on in the workroom is typing out all these like horrible things, and it just shows that really interesting dichotomy of what we see on our TVs versus what is actually happening behind the scenes, which I think this film does really well. It's really artful for a film that is so matter of fact. Like, I was surprised with how many different shots I just really loved, just seeing the different visual representations of things.
Absolutely. And the one thing I forgot to mention before, Chad, you go, I apologize, is Deep Throat. I mean, look, you need, when you're a journalist, you need your sources. Like this day and age, it might be a bum on the street that looks like a guy in a hovel or something like, but that guy's a source for writers or reporters or whatever. Deep Throat happened to be a real man who later came out in history as a guy by the name of Mark Felt. And he basically saved the country at this time. It's like, where's our Mark Felt today? We need a Mark Felt today to get this guy out of office. I'm sorry, guys. I had to go there. I apologize. No. But Hal Holbrook, you're going off on the wrong point. He's trying to help him out. And they're like, follow the money. Yeah. And Hal Holbrook, his eyes, piercing eyes. I mean, those eyes could stab you in the face. How deep those eyes were in that scene, those scenes in the parking garage and stuff. So I just want to mention Hal Holbrook as Deep Throat. I thought he was fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you don't have to apologize for bringing up current events, because I like we've been talking about, like, these films are very much of the time of that history, and that's what makes them so special, is that they are very much told in a voice that is so urgent to the time it took place. but they have universal themes, and there's a reason why at the end when everything is so. Oh, and he got in trouble, and that's how you fix history. It's like, but history wasn't fixed, and that's kind of the melancholic nature of the ending as well. But Chad, I want to hear your thoughts because I know you had seen this one before, correct? This was not a first. Okay, so I'm the only first watcher here, but Chad, what do you think of this?
Yeah, and the fact like Dylan and I are like never really shy about like sharing our actual opinions on things. So we're not fans of Trump here or fans of any of that ilk or anything like that. So like basically looking at this movie from that lens where we're like seeing people like with integrity, like dedicated to finding the truth and then giving the truth, and then having people feel shame and having people feel like bad about like doing wrong things to the country. And nowadays it feels like we don't have that at all. It
Mm-hmm.
feels like there's just always misdirect and gaslighting and just like everything's fine, oh, we're just going to go through a deep economic recession, but it's cool. And just imagine like if anyone on the other side had done something like that, it'd be the biggest news story of all time. And now we're just ignoring everything. And to see a movie like a time capsule like this, showing people like tirelessly working to uncover the truth and try to figure out what's going on. And nowadays it feels like if there's a Watergate scandal or something like that happened, it'd just be like whatever, it's just another thing that they did and it doesn't matter anymore. So it's sad, but also happy that that once existed. And I'm hoping that we can get to a place where that exists again, where people actually feel shame. There's integrity in the, Republican Party, where the Republican president goes, I'm going to resign and leave because I did something really bad. And we have to make sure that the country is safe and, actually, promoting the welfare of the people and stuff like that. So yeah, this movie actually did, I guess, get me quite a bit of a rise just because, thinking of that, it feels like a movie that was probably very interesting at the time, then maybe got less interesting over time because it's just like one of those, like I said, things that you watch in school that you go, oh, okay, that's what Watergate is. All right. And then now is incredibly interesting again because you're like, comparing that to today and trying to figure out like, where are we going and like what can we do to like get back to that level of integrity? Because now where the media is basically being targeted and just the AP or whatever is Associated Press is no longer able to cover anything at the White House and just all this stuff. So it's just when we once had such a respect for the media and to see like what they go through here with these two guys just like trying to uncover this. I loved what Dylan was talking about when he was saying the all the shots and stuff because on this rewatch Dylan's the type of guy that'll watch something the first time and notice all these cool shots.
No, it's great
for me and Carrie and I were both noticing different things like, oh, look at that shot right there with like him in the foreground and the background. They're all reacting to something on the news.
Oh, I love it.
And I feel like most people, when they watch for the first time, might not even be able to, see that. They're just focused on Robert Redford doing something over here. But then you got to like look at the entire frame. And I just think that's like great, like, the brilliance of that. I feel like, because I understand, I think, why they did it, where it's like, it kind of ends in a way where it's like they're kind of down, but they're still working. They're still working on it. They're going to uncover it. But then they kind of, Dan has a thought. We'll get to it. Where it's like, it feels like there's still more to go.
Yeah.
And yet they choose to go, all the cathartic stuff that happens. Like all these people were caught. This, Nixon resigned.
Yeah.
They decide to type it.
It doesn't let you show it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't let you experience that catharsis. Yeah.
But I do love that like final shot of the news happening where he's been like sworn in or whatever. And then you have them two over at the side, still typing away, trying to uncover the thing, and just making it make sense because they're like, when you reveal this, you actually have to make it make sense, connect all the dots, make it like where you can't deny something like that. And nowadays people can put out anything they want. They can connect all the dots and it all makes sense. Yet, the people in power have gained so much power that it doesn't matter. And so it's just it's very frustrating. But I think this is a very, very good movie.
Yeah. Dan?
No, you gave me chills, Chad. You literally gave me chills talking about this, talking about integrity. And the thing about journalism, it's the same thing as a film critic. There's always another TV show and a movie for me to watch and review. Journalism, there's always the next story. We've been seeing in movies for the last 25 years, right, guys? That 15 minutes of, we got that movie. Then we get the next 15 minutes. We got OJ. We got Atlanta. We got Nancy Kerrigan. We got boom, 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 boom. It's that 15 minutes of, we got the sex tape with Pamela Anderson. It's that 15 minutes, right? Over the last 25 years. Remember, he had that whole decade of.
Yeah, like news becomes old news in 15 minutes. Yeah. And then you have to get new news. And that's why it's so tough to keep up the paper, too, because it keeps changing.
When you're a journalist, you got the story, boom, you're going on, you're moving, you're working hard to get the next story. And so that's why I loved it how it ended, because that's the journalist's job isn't done. These guys' job wasn't done. And it's always, let's go get the next thing, and the movie showed that in a capsule. This is this story. These guys are going to go continue to work for the next thing. And obviously they worked for 50 years.
It's almost like the thing where it is like, this movie isn't the catharsis that you wanted. It's like you said, it's never ending. It's always going. And it's like, you want that like catharsis at the end where they finally get it and they're celebrated and stuff. But it's just, it's all ongoing and, always got to cover terrible shit. Yeah. Very good point.
Yeah, and we see that nowadays too, where it's like someone will do something and it's a big news story, but then because the next thing happens the next day, the old stuff it's not relevant anymore. And
now it's 24 hours.
Jump. Right. Yeah, it's just so interesting.
15 minutes.
And I love what you were saying, Dan, about how it's journalism is very hard, but I think it's even more hard in the confines of technology at this time. And I know Chad was talking about it with the history. This is the year that Apple was invented. This is the year with the first supercomputer, and the idea that like everything here is so tangible. It reminds me of like Punch Drunk Love with the phones. It's like, you can't just have, Dustin Hoffman take his iPhone and start recording and put it in his pocket. You can't do that. He has to wait till she gets another cup of coffee, and then he has to scribble on a napkin and put it in his pocket, and then keep drinking coffee and caffeine. Like, he's literally putting himself through the ringer to get all the information he needs, because he can't just record it. You can't just
say his name. He always has to say up front, I'm Woodward. I'm Carl Bernstein of the Washington Post.
Right.
Bob Burns. Woodward of the Washington. They always have to say their names.
Yeah.
Because if they don't say their names, they're being misleading, right? Chad?
Yeah.
Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, and then also the rush of the typewriters and why they're always constantly moving a mile a minute is also because nowadays you can cut and paste. You can just highlight something, cut. You can look at a certain word and edit it. Here you can't. If something new emerges, you have to retype the whole shit over again. It's like, it's one of those things that like I think this really is a real ode to responsible journalism, because there's also the dangerous type of journalism, and we'll get to that in Network, which is a really great parallel companion piece to this film. But I do think this is a really good showcase of responsible journalism and why journalism is important, why press is important, why when the president says get rid of the press, that's a very dangerous thing. You need the press. Now, you don't need the fake news articles that spin the truth in irresponsible ways, like Network, but you also need, your reliable news sources. And that's why I appreciate that this film doesn't really go for the dramatic beats. It doesn't really go for the suspense. It just exists naturally because of the events. It doesn't try hard to make those moments. It just exists as it is. By that, it is naturally, inherently suspenseful. And I love how this film, the suspense comes from the napkins and the typing and just making sure you get everything you need and get it done in a timely manner, get the information out there before it's old news, as Dan said. So I think that's such a cool aspect of it.
Followed, or if like you're looking over your shoulder because you think someone's coming out, coming to get you.
I watch all these films within like a 12-hour sitting, so I don't remember if it's from this movie. But is this the one where there's a shot of him walking down the street and then it like zooms in on him when he turns around? Yeah, like just that one shot is like the one unconventional shot in the whole film that feels like it's in a different movie, but because it's intentionally put at that point, we get some sort of response from it. It's such a cool device, like just a random one shot that just changes the tension and tone of the whole piece in that very last 11th hour.
You get some really good like paranoia in it. Kind of feels like The Conversation and movies like that, where it's, they're now in it, and it's like, our lives are in danger now because we're uncovering the truth. And but back then you had people that were willing to risk things like that in order to for the good of everyone else. And now people are just cowering and not even going to town halls and stuff like that because they're afraid, the cowards of actually owning up to things and having the integrity. But yeah, you guys are talking about like the tension and stuff in the movie. Just there's a lot of great like tense music that I was really reacting to when Robert Redford is just kind of walking around and and then they have to run after each other and stuff like that too. It just feels like very low, very high energy at times without being like an action movie.
Right.
So
this seemed like a movie like Sidney Lumet would direct, to be honest with you.
Which is ironic. Yeah.
Network. He did Network, but this seems like the kind of movie he would be directing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because I remembered Lumet directed one of them, and then I was watching All the President's Men and was like, oh, this is the Lumet movie. And then I was like, whoa, it's not. when I found out, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And Alan J. Pakula, like one of those names that isn't revered as highly as like Sidney Lumet and Martin Scorsese and other directors of this time in this slate, Hal Ashby. But I do think, he deserves a lot of credits. I said it earlier, Sophie's Choice. I mean, that movie is also a really well-made one. So I think he's one of those underappreciated directors that I guess just never broke out into the mainstream in the way that a lot of other directors did, but clearly has a good directorial eye. Like this could have been just straightforward, and it is straightforward, but it could have been just presented in a straightforward manner. But they really try to make it artful as they can, which is why it's great.
What I loved about what you said, Dylan, is that how it stands up today. How this almost a 50-year-old movie about a 55-year-old event or 54-year-old event almost literally stands up today as like a movie that you really get affected by. When we're talking about it, we're being affected. We're dealing with, the Hal Holbrooks and the walking down the street looking. How does the almost 50-year-old movie affect us because of what's going on in the country today? And that's what great movies. We always say 15-year-old, 20-year-old, 10-year-old, 25-year-old movie. We'll find out what stands up to time. To me, this is why I can watch this movie once a year or twice a year, whatever, because it just stands up in time as a time capsule of something that really is effective in doing what its job is.
And I mean, this is the one that was upset by Rocky. This and another film, it was like a duo upset. But I do think, at the time, I can see why they didn't want to award this because it is so topical, it is so fresh. It's almost like when The Post came out in 2016, everyone was like, this is too soon, even though I think that movie's a masterpiece. Like, I think this is one of those cases where it's like, I just don't think they were ready and they didn't realize how impactful this would be. And I think if you were to do the Oscars now, I still don't think this would win, but I think a lot of people would see this as much more of a culturally relevant, like long-lasting, like artifact of cinema than they probably would have at the time, which is so cool, which is why it's cool to look back at. Yeah.
Well, the fact of the matter is there's something called Picture This, where we can reevaluate the Academy Awards. And we, three people, I've been watching movies for 45 years. You guys have been watching them however long. I watched thousands and thousands and thousands of movies. So we have a good eye on what's good, what's not good, what's whatever. So we have the proper device here to reevaluate the movies from 1976.
Well, we shall see. Chad, any last thoughts on All the President's Men?
I don't know. I mean, I probably could
listen something. Right?
It's one where I like it more and more every time I watch it. But I don't know. Yeah, I just don't think it's been more relevant until now, except for when it was first made. And so it's just one that like now I can't wait to see the Trump administration version of All the President's Men, where
oh boy, you're gonna get a bunch of those.
There was like a lot of like people working tirelessly trying to figure out how to stop this, with Trump's doing his dumb shit in the background, kind of a deal, and people reacting.
Yeah, we got the Comey effect already. It's a 2-part movie on Showtime with Brendan Gleeson as Trump and
I did hear about that.
Kingsley Benadir as Obama, and then you have some, I believe, Jeff Daniels, as Comey. That's just one little story.
I mean, hey,
watch that. You'll start.
I assume we'll see a lot of that media. Even the ones that aren't overtly about him, like there are still a lot of inferred meanings behind a lot of films. That's like, this is about him, but not really. I think Black Klansman had a lot of that going on. The Post had a lot of that going on. So I think it's going to be very interesting in the time to come to see exactly what we get out of this era, especially post-COVID as well. Like seeing how the pandemic, because we've already seen the pandemic kind of have a stamp on the media.
Yeah.
So very interesting. Yeah. Cool. All the President's Men, nominated for 8 awards, wins 4. The fourth of the big quartet of acting awards did go to this film for Jason Robards, who won supporting actor. It also was nominated for won adapted screenplay, sound, great win there, very underrated win there. And then art direction. And then it's nominated for picture for director Alan J. Pakula, supporting actress for Jane Alexander, and best film editing. So All the President's Men was not bound for the award at the glory of the awards at the Academy Awards, but what was bound for glory is someone we just talked about a few months ago, Chad, on Picture This, Mr. Scoot McNairy in A Complete Unknown. But did you know that character, that life figure, had his own biopic years and years and years ago called Bound for Glory? I didn't know until now, but maybe some other people listening do. But Chad, tell us about Bound for Glory.
Sure. Bound for Glory, directed by Hal Ashby, written by Robert Getchell, cinematography by Haskell Wexler, music by Leonard Rosenman, George Brand, Joan Beale, Guthrie Thomas, and Ralph Ferrero, starring David Carradine, Ronnie Cox, Melinda Dillon, Gail Strickland, Randy Quaid, Jai Tu Kumbuka, Wendy Shaw, and Guthrie Thomas. Synopsis: a poor musician living in the Dust Bowl leaves his home and family in search for work out west in California. He finds life hard for workers due to their exploitation and mistreatment by the wealthy, and begins singing protest songs. Based on the novel Bound for Glory by Woody Guthrie.
Yeah, I just realized I butchered the segue when we literally had Woodstein. I could have said Woodstein to Woody. I didn't think about it until now. So, I'm mad as hell at that segue, but damn it, that's the next segue. Damn. Okay, anyway. Let's talk about Bound for Glory. This is obviously the one that is probably the least popular, is the least appraised. Yeah. It's the one you can't really find on a lot of streaming services, if any. Thank you, VPNs. But yeah, I just hadn't heard anything about this until obviously Complete Unknown came out, and Woody Guthrie became a little bit more of a name in today's society. But even then, like, I don't think a lot of people were talking about this movie, but some people were like, well, there is a companion piece if you want a good double feature. I saw it on Twitter once. It was like, if you want a companion piece double feature, this works well. Even though it's a very different biopic than most musical biopics you would see, because it's less about, someone's career and like stardom, more so about a humble beginning to become, a songwriter, less of a star in the Bob Dylan sense. Like Bob Dylan, it was more of like defining a culture, whereas this is more like finding the voice of the artistry in a way. But also, surprisingly enough, my first Hal Ashby film. So like, this is a really cool experience. I have my Being There criterion I need to watch, but very interesting too, because I think he has a very distinct style that I feel like once I see a lot more of his works, I'll get a little bit more accustomed to it. But I don't have a lot of thoughts on this one, just because it is the least kind of notable in today's history. But Chad, as someone who I know we both enjoyed A Complete Unknown, but you really, really liked it. What do you think of this one? What do you think of Woody Guthrie's Bound for Glory? Not that he made it, but it's about him.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. I was the same way, where I was very excited for this one because of A Complete Unknown, and I was like, what do you know? I'm covering a movie called A Complete Unknown, and then a little bit later, I'm covering a movie that came out way later, like 50 years later, talking about someone who was very prominent in that movie, Woody Guthrie. I liked it. It's one of those that it kind of feels like a mix between A Complete Unknown and The Grapes of Wrath, kind of like combined it because it took place like in that same time.
The Dust Bowl,
where it was like, someone it wasn't about like a family traveling together and then getting torn apart, but you can kind of like see families like that happen, things like that happening to families in the movie, as you see the single guy, traveling, not single, but he has a wife and kids back home, but you see that like families had to kind of split apart even in this way, where a guy leaves and goes to find work so that maybe he can send some back, or maybe they'll just like leave and just be gone, kind of like hey, I'm gonna go out for milk and never come back, kind of a deal. But it was interesting to see a songwriter come up in this environment, in this situation, to see everything that he went through, but to see that everything everyone else was going through as well, and to see him stand up for people even though he had nothing, by writing music and like having like a real reason to write music, not just that he had talent and wanted to, but like, hey, this is something that I can do to reach people and make protest songs, and say, kind of being like the Bernie Sanders of the day, like, you're workers and you deserve respect and you deserve things.
A concept.
And then having people in the audience, being like, we don't deserve things, and like trying to like stand up like against their own like rights and stuff that they should get. And it's like the brainwashing of that. But yeah, just the idea of seeing that happen, and then seeing this grand force go against him, and like the music industry basically trying to get him to play it's kind of like a mirror of A Complete Unknown, in the way that they're like, oh, play the other songs, don't play this stuff, don't play the challenging stuff that's going to change how we view the world. And then we'll actually see that also when we get to Network. It's like, don't change how we view the world, just give us the stuff that we thought was funny, or a quotable line or something like that. Give us that stuff, So I thought it was interesting in those ways.
Cool. Dan, this is your first watch. What did you think of this one? This is your only first watch. I believe all of us. It was our... Actually, no. All the President's Men was a first watch for me. But I believe this was all of our common first watch. Yeah.
Yeah, I did the double feature. As a matter of fact, I told Chad, I said, it made me put on A Complete Unknown right afterwards. I just watched them back to back. I was like, oh my God, what a double feature this is. I didn't even realize it until I was watching. I was like, I guess I'm going to watch A Complete Unknown again. And I really enjoyed that movie, and I got more context out of watching Bound for Glory. But yeah, no, one of the things I noticed about this movie is, like, you watch enough movies like I have. You've been watching movies for almost 50 years like I have. This movie's chock full with character actors. Oh, I remember that guy from that. Oh, I remember that person from that. Oh, that's M.M. Walsh in a real small role, or Randy Quaid in a role, or this guy who played a football coach in this movie, or
James Hong is the diner owner.
James Hong is the little Chinese, the little owner of the thing, the little restaurant thing. It's just like the chili owner. He owned the chili bowl place. But no, I mean, it really, you hit the nail on the head, Chad. It's a mix of The Grapes of Wrath and A Complete Unknown jammed together, and it really had some messages about working and working for the man, and doing something, and standing out when it wasn't easy to stand out, and do something that means something to you, even though you're getting beat up. And I noticed, like, all the thugs always there were these big dudes. You knew who the thugs were that were going to come and beat him up and wouldn't let him protest or wouldn't let him form a union or something like that. They were the big guys. It is like, and all the like the workers, or the poor people, or the people that were hungry, or the skinny people that barely you could see. But yeah, I mean, this is really how this country was formed. Things like this is how we got to the point where we are today in our society.
Mhm.
People like Woody Guthrie and David Carradine, phenomenal, fantastic in this movie. I mean, this land is our land. I mean, I sent you guys a voice message. This land is our land. This land is your land. I mean, how can you not care about that song and listen to the lyrics of that song and say that's not a song that matters about us as people back then? You know what I mean? And still today. Really, it's a song that stands the test of time. This land is our land. This land is, your land. It's all our land. We gotta stop letting crazy people rule the country and make dumb rules and dumb things and do dumb things. And we got to stand up and realize we're all in this together, and we're not separated 49.9% and 50% of America. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a good point. Yeah. I really like the whole idea of this land is made for you and me, kind of being, this film being kind of that, that idea of like, anyone can achieve that kind of American dream, kind of humble beginnings. But it isn't focused on the celebrity aspect or the star aspect as much as like A Complete Unknown is, or other biopics nowadays are about.
Yeah.
Like, I'm much more interested in seeing why an artist makes the art they make versus all the controversies and the relationships and the just the step-by-step process of someone's career. It's great to see them like perform the concerts. It's great when you get to see the Live Aid sequence reimagined in Bohemian Rhapsody, or all the different performances. Johnny Cash doesn't walk the line, but there's also something about just like getting to the truth of the lyrics that I felt like Rocket Man, for example, did a really good job of, like trying to find the intention and the meaning behind the songs, not putting the songs in order of when they were made and when he performed them, but more so trying to find the natural progression of the story of like, when would this song kind of come out of this voice? When would this guy be inspired to write this? What would make him write this? And I really like that about this film too. I do think it's a little, I think it's because it's this very kind of hazy, Americana, and everything's natural lighting as well. So, it's got that Nomadland feel to it in the cinematography, but I do think it gives it a little bit of a sleepiness that, like, also the music, just because it is a little bit more like low key and soft and folky, it is a little, I don't want to say sleepy because that has a negative connotation, even though it is like a criticism, but it's one of those films that I feel like, when I watch all these together, this is the one that probably sticks out the least because it's a little bit more laid back. It doesn't have that urgency, but I think for a film like this, it needs to be laid back. It needs to have, because it still has urgent things to say, but I didn't want the misery porn of Grapes of Wrath. I on the show, I said I didn't really love that film because it was a little too much. It was a little just, it weighed me down with it. Whereas I think this one, it found the levity in it, or just kind of the perseverance through something other than like deep struggle, which I appreciated. It wasn't as dark and heavy, but at that same time, I feel like it's a little inconsequential because of it. But I do think, it is a very interesting way to present an artist story, because from what I read, it's all fictionalized. Like this is not the truth.
He wrote it. I believe he wrote it.
Yeah, he wrote it as like almost like kind of his interpretation of his work. Yeah, like trying to speak to the artist, speak to the everyman through a relatable circumstance, and kind of infuse a little bit of his background into it, but kind of make this fictionalized story to kind of use as a vessel for what he wants to say with his music, versus like, this is my life story, ABC, which I think is also a really cool device. It's a really cool kind of way to interpret that, especially because he did have such a hand in making it. How do you want your story to be told? You have the Bob Dylans who are like, I don't care, leave me out of it, I'm excited to see it. But then you also have the people who want to be a little too hands-on. It's about finding that balance of someone who, like, you want to tell the best story possible, but you want to also let it be a piece of art. You don't want to just give them the Wikipedia page, which I think is really cool about this. I think the only thing that are true are his name and his wife's. Even the other characters' names are all fictionalized in this. So I think that adds a little bit of a mythology to him as well, and kind of makes him more of a modern myth, a legend type deal, kind of like those old folk legends, because folk stories are birthed out of legends. John Henry and Johnny Appleseed and all these like kind of folklore tales that are passed down from time to time. So I like that he's kind of indoctrinated himself within that folk culture by making himself essentially the subject of his own folktale, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, good point. You make good points. You hit the nail on the head. Done.
But it's a little sleepy. Like I don't want to hype this up, because you're not going to get Network or Taxi Driver, Rocky, or All the President's Men out of this film. I
think the problem is because a lot of those other, like every other movie in this slate is tight. Like it feels like it's really tight. This one's just like drawn out and long.
Really long.
And I feel like, because it's not like a Lawrence of Arabia or something where it's like it really fills that time with a lot of like
it's not grand.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like it kind of just it could have been tighter, I feel like. So,
Yeah. But yeah, I also like the performance. I know you both have agreed, but yeah, I also agree. I think it's a very good. I think he's so good in Kill Bill that it's hard for me to see him as like Woody Guthrie, or not Woody Guthrie. Yeah, Woody Guthrie. Sorry, that is Woody Guthrie. I get him and Pete Seeger confused now, but because Pete Seeger sings "This Land Is Your Land" in A Complete Unknown. So,
at the beginning of A Complete Unknown.
I wonder if that was an homage. Yeah, I wonder if that was like a.
I hope so.
Like, so for people who do the double feature, it's like, oh, okay, I know this.
I hope so. I hope people do the double feature, though. I hope people go and seek out Bound for Glory now because of A Complete Unknown, and that's I think it's a great double feature. Absolutely,
yeah.
And it's a forerunner of musical biopics, really, in a way.
Yeah. And I think next to All the President's Men, this is the last of the biopics, I think, because the next three are all fictionalized stories, which is kind of cool. Just kind of usually we see a lot of
one feels like a biopic where it's like in Philadelphia, like they act like Rocky was like a real person,
right?
The great like Bill Burr joke where he's like, he's not a real guy.
Like, I would argue all three of the next films feel like they could have been real people that they made biopics of. It's the Lydia Tarr effect of like, wait, Lydia Tarr wasn't a real person. It's The Brutalist as well. It has a very similar thing. So, all right, Bound for Glory, nominated for 6 awards, wins 2. It wins an adapted score, and that was a category back then. Wish it existed this year for Wicked and Dune, but I digress. Also cinematography, and then it also is nominated for picture, adapted screenplay, costume design, and film editing. But I kind of tipped my cap earlier when I said I was mad as hell that I forgot the last segue that I was planning. So I'll say now I'm mad as hell that I screw up that segue, and I won't do it again. So let's get on to network, shall we? Let's get mad together, Chad. That rhymed.
Dylan, I'm mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take it anymore. Network. Directed by Sidney Lumet, written by Patty Chayefsky, cinematography by Owen Roisman, music by Elliot Lawrence, starring Faye Dunaway, William Holden, Peter Finch, Robert Duvall, Wesley Addy, Ned Beatty, Jordan Charney, Chonchata Farrell, Daryl Hickman, William Prince, and Ed Crowley. Synopsis: a struggling TV network starts to get better ratings when one of their depressed news anchors threatens to kill himself on live TV and speaks in an angry, blunt, and populist manner.
Yeah, there you go. It was very interesting because we just talked about how like some of these feel like they're about real people and real events. This feels like something that could have very well happened, or at least inspired by it. The character of what's his name? Howard Beale even has his own Wikipedia page, but it's about the fictional character. Because I was like, oh, this is a real life guy. It tricked me again. It tarred me. That's a bad thing to say. Sorry. But no, it was shocking to find that out, that it was not based on a real event. But it makes a little sense just because it is so. It almost feels so on the nose about some of the commentaries it's making. But again, like All the President's Men, it almost feels more relevant today than it did then. And maybe it's just because this is always an issue, and it's always been an issue. It's always going to be an issue, just the way the media kind of controls and manipulates and exploits certain people and certain things to get good ratings. And, it's something that I feel like we've seen a lot mirrored in time again from other films and stuff. But, I mean, this is one of the best to ever do it for good reason. And we'll talk about it. But, I mean, just one of the best scripts I think ever made. But yeah, this is only my second watch. I still have so much to grapple with. I mean, this is probably the most dense for me of all the films, just because there's so much in the words and the text and all the performances, so many characters that it's almost like I'm still untangling the web. Where some of the other ones I feel like I've kind of tapped into them. But I would love to hear what you guys have to say about Network. We'll start with you, Skip. What do you got about Network? What do you think about Network?
Yeah, I mean, I love movies about news, and I love movies about the business of movie making or news or television or stuff, because we forget that yeah, these people are putting out something that is supposed to be enjoyable or whatever, dramatic or comedic or joyful or whatever it is, whether it be music or comedy or drama or whatever. But when it comes to like newscasters, these guys are talking about negative things all the time. And it has to get to these people. It has, and you know, there's a woman in Tampa that they made a movie called Christine or something like that, or
with Rebecca Hall.
Yeah, and where she, you know,
actually did it.
Yeah, she actually did it. So when you're dealing with this is your job. Yeah, is it a glamorous job? You're on TV all the time. You're talking to millions of people, but there's such a stress behind it. And this movie really, with the Howard Beale character, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. He basically uses television to get to the populace and uses that as a medium to say, hey, get off your ass, get out there, do something with your life, make a difference, you know? And I think the movie is basically trying to tell people that the 70s were a very divisive time in American history. I grew up in the 70s part of the time. I don't remember a lot of it, but I did grow up in the 70s. And it was we'll talk about with a couple of the other movies before we're finished here. But even though this is a fictional story, it really resonates with people in general. It's like, hey, go do something, make a difference. You know what I mean? And say something. If you say something, have it mean something, you know? And if you see something, say something, you know, the cast is amazing. By the way, Warren Beatty is in both this and
Ned
All
Beatty.
the President's Men. So,
Ned Beatty, you mean? Yeah.
Ned Beatty, not Warren Beatty, Ned Beatty.
Though Warren Beatty is very closely tied to Faye Dunaway, so I could see how you
Ned Beatty is in both All the President's Men and this movie, and there's an actor that's in both the other two movies we haven't got to yet either. So there's ties to these movies in ways that you wouldn't even think of. But no, Holden and Dunaway to me, that's the most fascinating part of the movie. That relationship of one woman trying to raise up her game to get up that ladder, climb up that ladder. And then you got this guy who's already up the top of the ladder and he's just so jaded. He's so tired with life, with everything that he's got to deal with this Howard Beale guy. It's like, and then he's dealing with this woman who's got a whole different kind of agenda, and yet they're trying to have this relationship. Older gentleman, younger woman. I was very fascinated by those two. To me, that relationship was very, very interesting, having rewatched this again.
Yeah. I think when I said I'm like still trying to not come to terms with it, because I think it's amazing and it's so fascinating and so great, but like trying to figure out where that intersects, because it feels like there's so much about like the Peter Finch ratings, exploitation plot line, you know, speaking out against the system. And then there's like the romance, which I think at the first watch, I didn't really feel like it blended too well, but I think the more and more I watch it, the more I understand just how integral that portion of it is, just because it is showing the line. And I think when William Holden says, like, I'm the one thing kind of keeping you in reality, it kind of like something, that was paraphrased, but, you know, like that idea of like, you're so consumed by your work that at some point that becomes your truth. This lie, you become pathological in a sense. Like that is, manipulation is just your norm. And then being a real person and like having real genuine conversation becomes something that is a little bit more put on, a little bit more foreign. And I think that's really interesting. It's just like, the first time I watched it, I didn't love the side plot, because I also just didn't ever buy it. But I think that's the whole point, is that it's not genuine from her side at all. She'll say it even, but it's not. It is for him. And, you know, we see that great sequence that Beatrice Straight wins the Oscar for, because it is genuine, because his hands are tied, because he knows it's wrong, but at the same time, he has genuine feelings where she doesn't. So, that's the one part of it that I was never really fully on board with. But now rewatching it, like, I feel like I'm more a fan of that plot line, also because they are just so good. I think that's the thing, is the actors are all so good that even like Ned Beatty, his performance is also very brief. But I feel like in just his small amount of time, he just nails it. And we'll talk about the comedy in a little bit, because this is a comedy as well. And I think that's a part of it too, to look at is, and that's something I also didn't get on the first go. Like I had heard it was a satire and I was like, okay, I get it. But like, I wasn't laughing, but this time there were moments with Ned Beatty and other people that like genuinely made me laugh. And I was like, wait, okay. I think I understand it a little bit more. Like it's one of those films that I feel like I just need to keep watching to uncover every layer. Like this is the one that is biggest onion to peel. But yeah, Chad, I want to hear what you think of Network, because I think you've seen this one before, right?
Yeah. This is
Mhm.
I believe my second time watching it.
Same.
And
Okay.
yeah, I like this one a lot more this time than I did even the first time. But it's
Right.
always kind of been brilliant. But I think I'm like on the same wavelength where I'm just like slowly discovering how good this movie actually is. Because you talk about like the side thing with the romance, but it's like so fascinating because it's like she's so into her job and always coming up with ideas for shows and stuff like that, that her life has basically become like a TV show, and she is, like you said, like nowhere close to living in reality, so nothing is real for her, and for him it is, and everything's real, even like when he's having trouble with his wife now because he's done this whole relationship. She found out about it, and then he has to basically console her because everything's real to him, and he's got nothing. He just knows like he really messed up, and can do nothing but console her. And just I loved all that characterization and stuff like that, and also to see like a woman behaving in this manner, I feel like was kind of a great thing that this movie did, where it's like normally you would see a guy be like the person that's trying to come up and being really sleazy and just how can we use this person's misery to get ratings on television and stuff like that. So to see a character be like that, I think is fantastic. But yeah, I love the satirical aspects of it.
Yeah.
Because I just love that type of stuff where they put it on the screen and then they're just like, this is how it is, and let's kind of poke fun at it. And I was laughing a lot at this movie, especially with the very end of the movie where he gets killed, and they're like, this is the story of Howard Beale, the first known instance of a man killed because he had lousy ratings.
Yeah. And just like the humor of like, oh, one network is showing this like little kid eating an ice cream cone or whatever, and he's just lying out, bleeding out in the other corner. And I think that's what's so cool is it's like, it's comedy, but not forced comedy. It's not Airplane. It's not going for the bits, but it just exists. It's humorous more than it is funny, if that makes sense. Like it's almost like so humorous that like this is how life is. But I think because it's pulling so much from reality, it's finding the humor in the actual genuine everyday, which is so unique for satire that usually you would think would like go for the jokes and go for the bits and go for the gags. This just kind of shows you what life is in a little bit of a heightened sense, and that's what makes it funny, but also makes you kind of step back and go, whoa, that's kind of fucked up as well. Like it's really interesting how it uses its comedy in particular. And I love that last sequence, like you said, because we talked about All the President's Men too. It's really cool where it could just kind of linger on something, and the process and the work and the actual like televisions in the way that like network All the President's Men has like the typewriter, kind of because it's been infused in so much of the DNA of the film so far that's a cool way to end it, without the characters actually present telling you what's going on or anything. It's just allowing it to kind of just exist in the space that you've been in, if that makes sense.
It's just the way like the characters behave that makes it really funny, where it feels like real life, but it also doesn't feel like real life because it goes so extreme, which I feel like is what great satires do. It's like in the very beginning when you're first introduced to like Howard, and then like you see him doing his job, and that first broadcast is when he's like, a week from today, I'm going to kill myself live on air. And, you can see like only some people were actually paying attention. And then, but the people who are actually supposed to be sitting there doing their jobs and, controlling the show weren't even paying attention. And they're like, wait, what happened?
Right.
What did he say? Kind of a deal. And to see them take that to such an extreme of like, all right, this guy has obviously he needs therapy. Like he doesn't have the proper like support system. He needs therapy. He's gone off the deep end, whatever you want to say. Like Dan was saying, like he's kind of affected by everything, and maybe is not at the right spot that he wanted to be, or and stuff. And then it just turns out that they're like, hey, let the crazy man go because people are watching him. And then it's like when he starts to say too much truth, then both they don't want him to be saying that anymore, but then the ratings are going up. But then people also have shown that they just want the buzzwords. They don't actually want the truth. Where it's like when he's like, you guys are being controlled by your televisions, and then they're like, oh, I don't want to hear that. So then the ratings start to go down, which I feel like is just very, very, very true. Like, I hear the messaging. Even Kendrick Lamar is like, turn the TV off, kind of a deal. But for me, I'm like, oh, never. But
Right.
I get it.
Yeah, but also, I mean, thinking about like how relevant it is now. I mean, we were talking about All the President's Men and how politically it means so much in terms of the responsibility of the press and like the power and the heroic nature of the press. This is kind of the inverse, where it's like this is the dangerous press. This is like the people who manipulate, the people who control, and I think that's just as important nowadays. You look at TikTok and how many people scroll through BS and all this like lies and fabrications, or these people that are just so silly and entertaining, like, look at this old person fall over, that's so funny, like, and it's like, yeah, it's entertaining, but you're also like, that's so effed up that you're laughing at such a thing, but that person's getting so much more money in their pocket than the person who's just like, writing a poem and putting it on TikTok. You're going to get more views for the more outrageous, ridiculous stuff. And it's just kind of that's kind of how our viral culture works. I think this movie of any of these five is the most relevant to today, and honestly has aged the best because it's talking to things that are still relevant. It's just in a different form. Like, media is just so different. Like, I think news and television is a little bit less of a thing compared to like computers and social media per se, but it acts in a similar way of like, what are you going to do to get the most likes? What are you going to do to get the most clicks? It's something that I went through when making this channel. I had to like kind of compromise myself and my work and my time to make it the more interesting product, or did I want to just let the art speak for itself? And that's why I don't bother putting in too many clips for these things, because I just want it to be about the conversation. But like, there was a point where I was like, I need the views, I need the likes, I need to do this, I need the clickbait, I need to clip all these things and put them on social media, and it becomes exhausting. And it's trying to find the balance, I think, because I think there's you need to live, you need a livelihood, but you also don't want to exploit anything or exploit your own time and see yourself wither away like Faye Dunaway, when William Holden kind of tells her to it straight. So I think it's a really interesting balance of like trying to find that, tightrope to walk between good art and worthy art and noble art, but also entertainment value. And that's with film as well. And I think that's always been the tricky part with marketing. How do you market a film without giving away too much, but you want to get them in the theater. But then you have people like me who are pissed off that you showed that before they got in the theater, so it's just a bunch of, so many things came to my head watching this of like modern parallels I could make. That's really fascinating, especially given the political climate of the time, because I think a lot of it has to do with politics. Why do people idolize this guy who's in the presidential chair right now? It's not just because of the policy, but because they're entertained by him. Yeah. And that's this crazy old man that they want to see memes of, and they want to see him do the YMCA dance, and that for them is worthy of a vote to run this freaking country. And that's obscene, but that's how it is.
That's really all it is. You're right. Like, people are just like more, in tuned with the fiction than they are the actual reality of the thing. And it's like, let the TV business guy like run everything. And then you see just, how poorly that goes. And then you're like, 4 years later, we have a little bit of a buffer. And then it's like, oh yeah, the TV business guy's back. Mm-hmm. Oh, sweet. Let's make him president.
Right. Yeah.
Oh my God. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. What else we got on network? I feel like there's still so much to say, but Dan, anything else on network?
The Ned Beatty scene. The big scene that was then kind of homaged in Better Call Saul, which I don't
is it? I
don't think Dylan's gotten to it yet, but it's very early in the show. I think it's like episode 1 actually. Where Saul comes into the lawyer office, and he's like, "You will atone," and he like does like a whole like Ned Beatty bit and stuff in it, which is fantastic. And that, I feel like that is such a great scene where they're just kind of like, he's like basically saying, this is how this has worked since like the dawn of time, and you're messing with the natural order of things here. You can't tell the people that they need to stand up for themselves, and they can't do this and can't do that because businesses have to thrive, and how we've kind of bowed to the business and bowed to the network and bowed to corporations, and how they're now controlling everything. We have like this whole corporate oligarchy that's going on, and like they're more valuable than people nowadays. So I feel like that ties in really well. It's a very small part, but I think it's stands out.
But I think this movie's all about the small parts, like the little bit actors and bit role. I mean, Beatrice Straight, we talked about it. That's kind of why this film succeeds, is because not just the main storylines, but all the little pockets that make up this tapestry, this mosaic that's so beautiful. Dan, what do you think of like Beatrice Straight and Ned Beatty, like these little one-off characters?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but I just think there's some acting wins in this movie that didn't deserve to be the winners. I feel like other actors in other movies deserve to win, and I don't see the Oscar winner in this movie as per se as I do other movies when it comes to best actress, best actor, and things like that. So I think they got it wrong. The Academy got it wrong when it comes to also like screenplay and stuff like that, original screenplay and stuff like that. I think they really dropped the ball on some of these awards this year. And I'll go into it in the next two movies that we're going to discuss. But this movie, it kind of has lost its luster. I feel like opposite you. I feel like it hasn't stood up as much.
Interesting.
It was a great movie. There's no doubt about it. It's a great movie. But it just, to me, it hasn't stood the test of time compared to the three other movies, All the President's Men and two other movies we haven't got to yet.
Interesting. That's actually a really cool perspective because, watching this even, I wasn't even entirely like, this is the best film of the 70s like so many other people, but I was able to appreciate it so much more, I think, because of how relevant it feels to today, but also like even just looking at age, like the way people in certain generations, like you talking about Watergate and stuff, like that's where I was at a disconnect because I didn't know a lot about Watergate, whereas here it's like I very much feel like I'm a little too ingrained in like the viral culture of social media to where I feel like this film can touch different people in different ways, and that's why maybe these two films did lose, because maybe not everyone wanted to think about the media and corporate strangleholds over different forms of media, and people didn't want to think about politics and Watergate and Nixon, and maybe that's why neither of them won, even though they were the front runners per se. I think when we're looking at just the upset in general, maybe that could be it.
It's the movie basically showing that basically showing that that's real, like exactly what you said,
proving its point.
Saying, that's exactly what's going to happen, and then that's what happens.
Yeah, but I do think some of these performances are going to come up later, so I'm curious to hear more specifics of like what Dan thinks about them, why they weren't worthy of the Oscar. But I do think in order to talk about that, you kind of have to talk about the future movies and performances, I'm assuming. So when we get to our actors at the end in our ranking, you can elaborate a little bit more, Dan, on why this one maybe didn't rise up as much as the others. But I'm very fascinated, though, because I do think we all agree it's very good. But it feels like one of those films, though, that... What was that?
Speaking of rising up.
Rising up, yeah. We'll get there now. Let's fly. Any last thoughts, Chad, for Network?
Check it out if you haven't.
Yes.
There's no doubt about it. It's a great movie.
And if you can get your hands on the Broadway bootleg from a few years ago where Bryan Cranston played Peter Finch's character, it is fantastic.
Really?
It's so good.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was a play, not a musical, but it was on Broadway. It's so fantastic, and they used actual like live television camera. So they had a little all these screens around the stage proscenium where they would like actually have live footage of the characters on the screens as you watch the play. It was fantastic.
It's kind of like how they have the Glengarry Glen Ross going on right now.
Absolutely, yeah. And Good Night and Good Luck. A lot of Picture This covered films on Broadway. This one was on Broadway before the pandemic, so it's not on anymore. But it was a great version. So if anyone could get any hands on any clips, it's great. But Network wins 4 awards of its 10 that it's nominated for. It's nominated and wins for Best Actor, Actress, and Supporting Actress for Peter Finch, Faye Dunaway, and Beatrice straight, and then of course original screenplay, which is a bit of a contested award here, but I think is very worthy. But also nominated for picture, director for Sidney Lumet, actor for William Holden, supporting actor for Ned Beatty, and cinematography and film editing. But Dan alluded to it. We're gonna rise up. We're gonna fly now. Gotta fly now, because we're gonna be talking about the guy who's not actually a Philadelphia legend in terms of really existing, but he has become a Philadelphia legend. There's a statue of him on those stairs. So let's talk about him. Let's talk about Rocky. Chad, tell us about Rocky.
Yeah, I've ran those stairs. I think we all probably have. And also, it's interesting that Eye of the Tigers, it wasn't out until the second one, right?
I know, yeah, that's like the synonymous song. But I will also say, I was about to say, tell us about Rocky Balboa, but that was the actual title of one of the Rocky movies, so I can't say that, because I was going to segue us to the person, but he's just a first name basis today. Let's talk about Rocky.
Sure. Rocky, directed by John G. Avildsen, written by Sylvester Stallone, cinematography by James Crabe, music by Bill Conti. Starring Sylvester Stallone, Talia Shire, Burt Young, Carl Weathers, Burgess Meredith, Thayer David, Joe Spinell, Tony Burton, Pedro Lovell, Frank Stallone, and Joe Frazier. Synopsis: a poor, self-proclaimed bum from Philadelphia gets a shot to go the distance with one of the greatest professional fighters of all time to make something of himself while he still has a chance.
All right. Well, Dan, you are the guest, and the poster's behind you, and also you're kind of you and Chad are my resident sports guys. So I do want to hand it over to you first, Dan. What are your thoughts on Rocky, a film that I'm sure we've all seen quite a bunch, or at least more than
dozens of times.
I think this is like maybe my third or fourth full watch, but like whenever it's on TV, I'll put it on. Like it's one of those things where I've seen the last 20 minutes probably 50 times. But yeah, it's one of those films that like I feel like I know every beat of, even though this is my third or fourth proper watch through beginning to end. But you know all the beats. It's iconic. Like there's the shots that you just can immediately put in your brain. But what do you think of this film?
Yeah, Rocky's one of my favorite films of all time. Sylvester Stallone reminds me of myself to this very day. Yeah, am I a boxer? No, but I'm a guy who's struggled his entire life. He's everything is a struggle for me. It's climbing the ladder of anything has always been a struggle for me. That first hour is arguably some of the best filmmaking I've ever seen, in my opinion. The fight is one thing, whatever. It's that first hour to me of him just trying to meet a girl that what's his face, Talia Shire's character. Adrian tried to meet her, and it's a struggle. Just to talk to her in the pet store is a struggle. Just to get respect in his circles around. The kids on the corner are making fun of him. He walks the one girl home. Hey, Rocky, gives him the two fingers up and all this. And there are callbacks. I will say this. In either Rocky Balboa, I believe there are callbacks to Rocky. Spider Rico gets a call back in Rocky Balboa, and that little girl who gives him the fingers, she gets a call back in Rocky Balboa.
Nice.
He brings them both. He brings these people back. He cares about the people he works with. The one thing you can say about Sylvester Stallone, he cares about the people. He shares it around. He pays it forward to the people that were in these movies early on in his career and helped build his career up, and he gives them work later on in the later movies. The screenplay to me is absolutely genius. I mean, this is an absolute genius screenplay of this guy. By the way, Rocky is based on a guy by the name of Chuck Wepner, a real life guy who lived in Philadelphia and who Rocky or Stallone based the story on. Yeah. And you can go look that up, and it's the truth. It's Rocky's not trying to hide. I mean, Stallone's not trying to hide the fact that he stole the story of Chuck Webner. He knows it. Chuck Webner knows it. Everybody that knows
it. It does suck for him, though, that they have a statue of Rocky, and Chuck Webner's like, come on, that's me.
Yeah, it's him. And so it is, and there's a movie about Chuck. They have a movie called Chuck. And so that movie is a good movie, actually a decent movie. I think Liev Schreiber plays him. Liev Schreiber plays Chuck Webner, I believe. But no, this first hour is just so amazing. I mean, and then you look at the filmmaking style, the grittiness, the dirty, the grain. Oh, it's just so, it makes it look like it's real. I love a movie like this and the next one we're going to talk about that look like you're in a real place at that time in history. It looks like you could reach out and touch those grimy streets and the trash on the ground. And he looked cold. There's scenes where he's like wearing a coat or he's punching the meat or what. I mean, it looks cold. I like where movies that are cold and they don't look cold, you know, like he's in that cooler punching the meat. Yeah. It looks cold in there, man.
Yeah, it's not Halloween set in California where you can see like the palm trees in the background.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of ridiculous, some of that type of stuff. But you know,
fantastic masterpiece of a film. Just saying, it's one funny aspect of it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love Pauly. I love Talia Shire. I think if anybody should have been winning Oscars for Best Supporting Actor and Best Actress, it's them two. Those two to me were absolute incredible. Pauly, he was in Chinatown, and I liked him in Chinatown, but then he's Burt Young. Burt Young, but he just goes to the next level in this. I mean, when he gets upset, you know, he won't give him the job working for the gangster guy, you know, and he's, I can do something. I'm where. Then he gets in a fight, throws him out of the apartment. I mean, this is like stuff that I can relate to. These characters are relatable to me, to my childhood. The people were like this. This is how people acted. This is how people were. This is how my town of Lowell, Massachusetts looked: dirty, grimy, trash on the streets. You know what I mean? And I felt like I could relate to Rocky so much more than almost any character in history. Not a lot of characters could I really, other than the boxing. Even though I trained to be a boxer as a young kid, I trained with a boxer who was a lightweight, flyweight boxer. But I had problems with me, so I wasn't able to do sports like I wanted to. But Stallone, though, how does Peter Finch beat Stallone? This is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Stallone doesn't win 2 Oscars for Rocky. He should have won for Best Screenplay, should have won for Best Actor. This guy is incredible in this movie. He got robbed. Rocky got robbed.
Okay. I love a good Dan rant on the show. It's been a while since we've had it. I appreciate it. And it's a rant of love too. It's love for your movie you love rather than like tearing down the others, even though we'll talk about it when we get to our superlatives later. I can make a case for the others, but I do understand why, you know, even though the others win, it's disappointing to see these people lose. Also because you talked about how grounded in realism it is. You know, I love a film that, you know, you can see the lack of budget, but like it's almost an admirable quality. It gives the film itself kind of this underdog nature in just the way it's filmed. Like you can tell like this was a real like collaborative effort. They just wanted to get their movie seen, and I love like that little engine that could. It's not very polished, and I love that. I also love how the actors are so realistic. Like they're not your movie star types. Like Burt Young is not a movie star type. I think we saw a lot of this in the 70s with like the Godfather movies and Chinatown, like all these, like Jack Nicholson himself is not like a very leading man, handsome movie star kind of guy. And I feel like you see a lot of that in All the President's Men with Dustin Hoffman, like these very unconventional type leads. And although Sylvester Stallone's like built and he's a big like macho guy, like he's not the most attractive guy. He's not like the best speaker. He's not the most polished. It almost feels a little Brando-esque in terms of the way he... Yeah, in terms of the way he speaks, he's a little scrappier. It feels very Brando-esque in that sense. But I also love just how, like, Burgess Meredith feels like the actual guy. It doesn't feel like it's an actor playing a role. It feels like you just got this old, cranky old man out of this gym. Yeah? And the only person who does feel a little bit more movie star is Talia Shire, which they do the whole, like, put glasses on her to make her look uglier, and then he takes them off, and he's like, "You're pretty. I knew you were pretty." And I'm like, okay, you can still be pretty with glasses. We'll talk about that romance in a sec, but it is very funny how they try to make her ugly by putting glasses on her. It's like, come on. But even then, like she's still so real and grounded in that role. But yeah, it's Rocky. You know, I have a few other points to make, but I want to let Chad chime in here. What do you think of Rocky, Chad?
Yeah, well, I mean, just to kind of piggyback off of the things you were saying, like, you know, well, you brought up like, you know, Halloween and stuff like that. Like I love films like from that era, like you guys are saying, that like feel real. I feel like that's such a great quality to the original Halloween, where it just feels like you're watching something that happened. And same here with Rocky. The idea of like kind of like the mousy girl who works at the pet store, and you take off her hat and her glasses, and then you're like, oh shit, okay. I kind of get where they're coming from, but it's a very she's all that kind of thing. But all that being said, I agree. I think this movie is fantastic. I got to this one kind of late, but like when as soon as I saw it, I was like, holy shit, wow. Like now I finally get why like this is a movie that has spawned like such a franchise, like from this one like guy. It's not just that, but it's like like a 5-film franchise of his movies, and then a sequel franchise with the Creeds,
where he's not even in those anymore. He's not even in Creed 3. Yeah,
it's just his legacy
it's surpassed him.
And that's brilliant. And I could see even more Creeds coming out, maybe following Creed's daughter,
his daughter too.
Yeah, exactly.
We're getting a Drago spinoff.
Are we? I didn't even know that.
Oh yeah.
So
it fits between segments in Creed 3. If you pay attention to Creed 3, you'll see where it fits.
Cool.
And like some of the most iconic things of the franchise, like I mentioned, the big song "Eye of the Tiger's" not in this. Certain things, the Drago stuff, that's not until the 4th movie. But this movie, just as a standalone film, I just think is fantastic. I don't think you need the other movies to really elevate this. When Dylan was saying that this was an upset, I was like, just like fascinated, like, whoa, holy shit, like Rocky was an upset. Like it's like one of the best movies ever. And then it's one that I really love. I love just seeing I loved hearing the stuff like Dan was talking about, like where it's very personal to him, like he knows people like this, or he feels kind of like this guy. And I feel like that's the kind of thing, is a lot of people can feel relatable, because you have a lot of like areas where that they are kind of grimy, and like it's not perfect, but it feels home still, and you kind of like understand like the concept of saying that like who's that guy, oh he's a bum, kind of a deal. Like no one really was able to aspire to greatness. Like you have the movie I love, Sing Street, where it's like the one guy who was never able to because of one thing or another was never able to actually fulfill the dream that he had, but then can go and help his little brother live that dream. But then you have here, you get the one guy who actually finally gets the chance. And as I'm like I said, pushing on 36, I just turned 35, like I kind of feel that whole thing where he's like things hurt now, where it's like like my body is aging, and I'm not like how I once was, kind of a deal. And he's like he was 30 in that movie, and I was like, Jesus, how am I older than Rocky now? But it happens. And but yeah, seeing him like saying like I don't know if I have what it takes, feeling that sense of can I aspire to greatness? Do I have what it takes? Am I just a bum? Kind of a deal, just, and then seeing him actually do it. But then the whole big thing that people are like, the great thing about Rocky is he doesn't win, but he still gets that like, validation, that thing that he wanted. He went the distance. That's all he wanted to do. He didn't want to go and make Apollo Creed look like a fool or anything like that. He got that. He got the girl. As much as Dylan might have issues with that part of it, well, I guess we'll hear about it in a second.
Adrian!
It's just such an iconic film, and you think about like it's all about the fight, and like Dylan, you said, it's like maybe 20 minutes of the final like last little bit.
I would say in the runtime, it's 10% of the runtime is either boxing or boxing training. Like literally 10% of the movie.
Yeah, it's mostly just him living, and seeing his home life, and seeing his turtles, and thinking about becoming something, and
Yeah.
not yeah.
Yeah, well, not to pull back like my reality TV soapbox, but it's why like shows like, and I know Chad's watching it for the first time now, but like Survivor, I'm interested in Survivor because of the people and where they come from and their stories and the way they connect with others. I don't care about who can build the best fire or who can like do the best in the challenges, and I think that's kind of like with athletes in general. Like you cling on to athletes and their stories and their journeys more so than you do their abilities per se, because like you can be the best player ever, but if you're not a guy that people want to root for, you're just a guy with good stats. And I think that's kind of where like I don't want to get into it, but the Jordan LeBron argument sometimes comes out where it's like,
right.
no, people felt like they could relate to Jordan, whereas LeBron, it's sometimes like, oh, he's in it for the commercials and the luxury and all that stuff. But I like them both. I think they're both very good. But it's a reason why when Kobe passed away, there was like that deep sinking feeling because he was such a personable guy that people loved and people could connect to. And I think that's like the best athletes, when you have those fighters or jockeys in horse races or stuff that you can like really connect with on a human level. It makes you more invested in the sport to where the sport doesn't really matter. You're invested in the person.
Yeah.
And like that's what this movie is. You're not invested in the boxing, how hard he can punch. It's cool to see him punching the meat. It's great to see him chugging the eggs. That's all fun. And those are like the memorable little bits about it. But it's all about the person. And I love that, the underdog story and what Dan was saying about Sylvester Stallone, this being a personal thing. The movie itself, the way he got it made, is also very personal and underdog story. He apparently had this script, pitched it to someone, but then the studio said that it needed to be played by a different actor, or like they had their ideas, and he said, no, I want to play it. I think that's how it went, or maybe something with the financial, the script
on Netflix. You could watch it on Netflix, and it's in the documentary.
Yeah, but it was like a whole big thing to like get this movie made, and that's why like when Dan was like, how is he not a producer? It's because he didn't really have a say. He had to find the people who would give him the money to make what he wanted to make. So while it is his creation, he was putting all his faith into the hands of others, and it turned out really, really well for him. It spawned into a franchise. But I love how, Chad, you said it, like it stands alone outside the franchise. But it's so funny because now knowing the franchise, like I would say there are other Rocky and Creed movies that I like better just because they have like these moments that hit with me more. Maybe there are characters like the villains. Like I love the dynamic with Apollo Creed as the movies go on. I think he's a more complex character as it goes on. I think Mickey has a lot of great stuff in the next one. I think even Adrian has a little bit more agency in some other movies than this one. But I do think there's something special about the fact that this is so small that when you go back to it, you're like, wow, this was like so... It's not like Star Wars, where Star Wars came out with a bang. Like, this is a very small, intimate drama that if you didn't know there was a franchise, you wouldn't expect it to go and evolve in the way it did. But I think now that we know it is a franchise, when we go back to it, it's almost not underwhelming, but it's almost surprising. It catches you off guard with how subtle it is and how just rooted in character and relationships it is, when the other movies have these big training montages and have, all these really stylized special effects and everyone's dying and there's all this drama. And like in this one, it's just very simple, but I think that's what makes it so special in a way. Like, I'm not going to put this at the top of my Rocky ranking in terms of my favorites because I love the craziness of other movies, but I think this is definitely the most special because it is the most simple and the most straightforward, and because of that, it's the most blissful in a way, which I really like.
I don't even want to say negative, but I do think it is interesting, like how it's like you relate it to other movies in the franchise, where I was sitting there having like a thought about that final sequence of the fight. And I was like thinking about like how back then I feel like they filmed it very differently, where I think it was still incredible, but it was one of those things where I'm like, are they actually even... I don't feel like they're actually punching each other.
You can see the seams. Yeah, it's like the lightsaber duel in New Hope. Yeah,
and then I'm like, but Michael B. Jordan actually got the shit punched out of him for real, making Creed. So then I'm like, it kind of elevates it a little bit there. But yeah, I absolutely adore that this movie is not really about that. It's more about the character, because I think this character is just fascinating. Just love the way he talks. When he just walks in there, he's just saying like a bunch of nonsense all the times, but it's almost like poetic, where one time he walks in and he's like, hey, Adrian, these birds, they're like candy. They're like little pieces of flying candy.
He's a himbo.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
He doesn't have any intellectually good to say, but if you keep listening to him, wait a minute, he is saying something.
It's like poetry.
Prophetic.
Yeah.
something smart. If you just keep listening to what he's saying, it doesn't come across as he's saying something smart or intellectual, but then keep listening, put the words together one after the other, and you're like, wait a minute here. He is saying something prophetic here. He is saying something smart.
Yeah, it's like when you listen to Gary Busey speak. It's like he's like, "What do you do?" And then you're like, "Wait, actually, you're really smart." Even though you're presenting it in such a crazy manner. And I will say, like, when we're talking about the upset, like a lot of people were. Like the uppity members of the Academy were a little bit more upset because it was this big blockbuster. It was a sports film. These really intense dramas didn't win. But I would say, like, rewatching this, it still feels in the vein of the other 70s films. Like, yes, it's more triumphant. And yes, even though it ends with this big sweeping score and the slow-mo and the embrace of the lover, he does lose. And I think that's what's so 70s about it, is that if this were made in the 80s, if this were made in the 90s, he would have won that fight. It would not have won Best Picture. We would not get 8 movies. I'm just telling you that right now. The fact that he loses that fight is the single greatest decision of franchise filmmaking, or not franchise filmmaking, but like blockbuster filmmaking, I'd say, of the 70s, because that's what the fuel of the second movie is. He lost the first time. Now let's give him that win. But then now that you've earned that win, now the next one, oh, now this person's in danger. And the fourth one, what if he comes together with Creed? And like all these things that, like, I feel like left room to evolve. You can't evolve after he wins, because then he's the top. Then he's the top dog. And I love that decision to make him lose at the end. And the fact that they don't even make it a thing. He's just screaming Adrian and the music's overwhelming. You can barely even hear them say the winner. All you see is Apollo just go like this, and you're like, oh, okay, so he won. But it's one of those things where I think it's so fascinating how that last sequence literally makes or breaks this franchise, if you think about it, in a really fascinating way. Yeah.
It's the least important overall. I think the first hour is so much more important, but then you couldn't have this achievement without that last half hour of the fight or whatever it is, and some of the training montage, and then the putting the thing on the robe, and putting the meat company on the robe, and having Polly with the girlfriend, and just some of that stuff is like, it's just like so superfluous to the actual story of his underdog story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's why America in the Academy Awards resonated with it the most. It's such an underdog story, and we were all living in an underdog world at that point in the 70s.
Right.
You know, especially me growing up in the 70s where I come from,
I mean, I said they're coming out of Vietnam. They don't want to award the film about the Vietnam soldiers' PTSD. They don't want to award the Watergate movie, and they don't want to do the one about the corrupt media. They want to go for the fun. And I don't even say fun, because it is, like I said, it is still very 70s. There is some darkness to it, but it's not dreary. It's not sad. It's hopeful. It is hopeful. And I think that's where
script. How does that script not win? How does that not win Best Actor? I don't get it. I don't understand.
We'll talk about it later. Yeah.
I mean, it has the hopeful tone, but like you guys are right in that it still has the dramatic beats, like the things that you want to see in like a Best Picture winner of, the guy who, like, just the moments of that one moment that just really hit me when, like, he's talking to Polly, and Polly's like, you didn't get mad when they called you that stuff or talked about you in that way, when they kind of embarrassed you when you're on TV. And he's like, don't bother me none. And then later, he there's like a beat before it. And then he goes, hey, Adrian, it did bother me. And it's just like those moments. It's just brilliant writing where I'm just like, oh, man, just like really got me. It's just like those. That's just such brilliant moments that, like, I feel like, when people kind of think about it as like a, just a populist, like, crowd pleasing, like, Rocky kind of a deal. There are these very deep moments within it. That
they're thinking of Rocky 5 when they say that, like the one that's more like, okay, you've kind of overstayed your welcome. This feels more for the corporate. You needed to make a franchise, and even Rocky Balboa, I think, has some interesting stuff. Like, I really think most of them, I think, are really good. Like, for me, I've always said 4 might be my favorite, just because of how memorable it is and how I love interesting.
4. Guilty pleasure. That's my biggest guilty pleasure of all movies.
But Rocky 3 also has Mr. T and the collab. And that's, I think, is that where you get Eye of the Tiger, or is that the number 2?
Yeah, Eye of the Tiger's 3.
3?
Because it's when Apollo is training Rocky, because then they team up. Right. And I think that's another thing too, is it's so, like, that's what I remember of Rocky, is their friendship. And in this one, there's nothing with Apollo and Rocky. It's all very superficial. It's all just like, oh, I want to, I love his name, the Italian Stallion. That'll drive views. It's like Network. Apollo Creed should be in that movie. But yeah, it's like I do think that's so fascinating that Apollo Creed is merely a placeholder, kind of very nothing character in this, and I love how they evolve his character through Creed, where he's not even there as a character as well. And I think that's honestly why I do love the progression of this franchise, even though this is the most sincere. Maybe I do think it keeps leveling up in very interesting ways. It never feels redundant, even though the second movie is basically, a lot of people will say it's just the same movie. It's just she's in a coma, and I'm like, no, there's still a lot more to it, which I think is great. I love it. Yeah. Anything else?
No. I mean, the banter
iconic.
though in the fight, you start to see the future of the two characters and the friendship if
Right.
you listen to the banter between them in the fight.
I was, and also I was also like, speaking of the fight part, the very last part, I was sitting there thinking in the middle of it, like, and I know what you're gonna say, Dylan, but I'm gonna say it. I was sitting there thinking, like, how did this not win best makeup? Well, it didn't exist yet.
Yeah, no, that's I probably wouldn't have even said that because I also agree. Like the makeup's so good. When he slits the eye.
80, right?
I was
80
just
was
about to say, when they
makeup?
split the eye, I'm like, oh my god, what? You can do that?
80.
Yeah.
80 had makeup because of Elephant Man.
American Werewolf in London
Yeah.
started it, but I think Elephant Man. It was 81 because Elephant Man came out and they were like, how do we not have an award for this? So the next year they made an award.
There you go.
And it was American Werewolf in London.
It
But
was
yeah,
like the Dark Knight with now we need to expand this shit.
yeah. Yeah.
Don't get me started. On that. Go on.
I will just say, because it has been hinted at, the romance, I love the romance. I think it's great. And it is the reason why that ending is so emotional. The only thing is that, like, the whole, like, put glasses on her and she's ugly and meek and stuff is very classic Hollywood. But that's the thing. It's a little charming in that way. And I do think that first sequence of them in his, like, little home, at times I was a little like, oh, it gets a little uncomfortable, but it's honestly, he's so sincere and the characters are so real and authentic that by the end of it, when they do start kissing, I'm won over. It's actually very impressive how they're able to win me over. Because at first he's just like, no, lock the door. I'll tell Paulie you're here. Close the window. He's almost coming on a little strong, but I think because we're so endeared to Rocky, it doesn't feel uncomfortable to where if like Travis Bickle did it to someone, we'd be like, ugh, like this is getting creepy. Yeah, like I think there's a similar case in Blade Runner too that people talk about. So I think it's just like, he's such a sincere character that, like, yes, it's a little early in the film that we're not fully on board, so like it's a little awkward, but also when you've seen 8 movies of them together, or I forget when she passes away, but like 7 movies of them together, like by then,
right, was the last.
yeah. But by that time we're so invested in the relationship that, like, watching it again, I'm not as uncomfortable by it. But it does, like, when she was going downstairs in the pet store to get something, like, I was very worried he was going to follow her, and he didn't, thank God. But like, it does feel a little. At times I was almost like, no, Adrian, like, stay back, like, stand your ground. But what I like about it is that he, before he kisses her, even says, like, if you don't have to kiss me if you don't want to. And like, that's where I'm like, okay, no, he is a good guy, he has good intentions. It's just he is such an imposing presence that sometimes it comes across a little strong. But yeah, go ahead, Chad.
Yeah, no worries. I had the same thought when I was watching it, and I was just sitting there like, from this like 2025 like perspective, just thinking about like, the woman going into the man's space. She even says, like, I'm comfortable. I've never been in like a man's apartment before, just alone, kind of a deal. And you can like feel that kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah. And he keeps egging her on. He's like, no, you're okay. Stay. Yeah.
But I think like, it's also just like you're saying, it's one of those things where you've already started to really like Rocky. And I feel like it could turn in that moment if like, he would have been like really overstepped. Like,
if he had like actually put his hands on her and like forced himself.
I mean, he even says like, I'm gonna kiss you. You don't have to kiss me back. And I'm like, okay, but you got to ask her that. And then like he kisses her on the cheek first, and then he's like, all right, and then now if you want to, kind of a deal. So it really feels like even though he is sort of overstepping at times, it also feels like he's trying to break her out of her shell, because that's a part of it too, where she's like, she's never done this before, so like. You have to, you're the more outgoing person. You have to be like, let's go, do the relationship might have never happened had he broken her out of her shell. But then also you got to, be wary of, the intentions. And I feel like, like you said, you feel the intention behind it is that he's just like trying to get her to look past his exterior
Yeah.
and see the interior that he feels. He's not he's the beauty inside of the beast.
Right. And they do a good enough job explaining why she herself would react in that moment to anybody, not just Rocky. That it's not Rocky that's making her uncomfortable. It's the fact that, you even see it with her and Paulie, just their dynamic. And I mean, the heartbreaking moment for me is when Paulie throws that turkey out the window. Like, that always pisses me off. But it's also, and I know a lot of people are like, this movie, like, the men hate the women and it's very anti-woman, all that stuff because of stuff like that. But I'm like, no, but like, I've seen it with my own eyes, not with my own family, thank goodness. But like, there are some intense, especially in like the streets of Philly, and like, I've seen Eagles fans, my stories, Chad. But like, a lot of people have that intensity to them that it's like, no, you're fine, turkey, get the turkey, go outside, eat it in the alley. Like, Paulie's kind of a dick for a lot of it, but also then they give him human moments, and I think that's the thing is like, they're not trying to give you all these like really upstanding people. They're just trying to show you authentic people. And sometimes authentic people make mistakes and they're not perfect and they're not polished. And like,
that's a great point.
If he forces her to kiss him and he starts like unbuttoning his pants and like it gets uncomfy, but he never does that. You never get there. It stays very tame and it is sincere. And we do see that relationship blossom into something beautiful. So I am not opposed to the romance. It just, for me, the biggest thing is like, you're not convincing me that Talia Shire is ugly just because she has glasses on. Like,
and a hat and a coat? No.
Right. No, I think she's beautiful. I mean, you're a beautiful person no matter what.
I can see it because, like, if you're all like bundled up, maybe you can't tell. And then it's almost like when it's like, someone's hair is all tied up, and then it's like, let your hair down, like, let us see,
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like if you like this girl, you don't tell her after she takes the glasses off, oh, I knew you must have been beautiful. I just didn't see it before. Like, I don't know. I would be a different wingman. He says something along the lines of like,
because she was in the pet store and she had sold him the pets and stuff, so he knew he kind of familiar.
But when he takes the glasses off, he's like, I knew you were beautiful, like something like that. I was like, dude, tell her you're beautiful from the start. I don't know. I'm kidding. I just give it a shit because I'm not his wingman. This was 50 years ago. This is 50 years ago. Anything else? I mean, the song is iconic as well. It loses to Barbra Streisand, which like fine, good. She made history, but I'm also like, that song is so good too.
Oh, it's so good. Even like the way the movie starts, where it's just like the Rocky. Oh, it's so epic, this movie. It's so good.
It's so epic that they redo the scene in part 2. They just have everyone run behind him, and it still works just as well.
I love that. I love it when the kids and everybody start running behind him.
Yeah,
in the second one.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
he's
the other movies,
by that point, he's famous, so then everybody starts running with him.
Yeah, there's some movies I like better, but it's still Rocky. I mean, that doesn't take away from this.
Because I was thinking about like it sucks that the studio was kind of pushing back at him. Still great he was able to be in it. Still great that he wrote it, and hopefully there wasn't like any like big like studio interference. But like I'm glad that like if he wanted to direct it, that they kind of pushed back on that, because I just think Avildsen does like an incredible job with this. Even though like people may have a disagreement that maybe someone else should have gotten director, I was just like looking at the training sequence of it, and I was like, the shot is just so great, and like the sweeping camera move behind him when he gets up to the top of the stairs, like they make such a mundane thing of him running up to the top of the steps and doing this look so incredible.
So this actually, I forgot to talk about this when we were talking about Bound for Glory. Bound for Glory was the first film to ever use Steadicam.
Oh.
But because this came out before, this was the first film released that featured Steadicam. I actually wanted to say that because there's you can see it. This is a very evolving year. Yeah, so they invented a technology. I forget his name. The cinematographer. That's why it won cinematography for Bound for Glory. But he invented Steadicam, which is something we see a lot of nowadays. Yeah, so to allow for those really great tracking shots and stuff like that. So I just wanted to bring that up because thank you for reminding me. Because Rocky, I think Rocky and I want to say Taxi Driver as well used Steadicam, but they came out before Bound for Glory, but Bound for Glory was filmed first, so that gets the credit for it. But either way, an iconic thing to be invented.
So good,
we talked about how CinemaScope was invented last episode, Chad, for Quo Vadis, so it's cool that this...
Technicolor? No, CinemaScope.
Technicolor, we had that snafu where I thought it was Technicolor, but then we were like, no, Wizard of Oz. CinemaScope was 1951, and now here's 76. We have Steadicam.
Wow.
So
Cool.
Brutalist is still using that technology. So very cool. Anything else, Dan, for you on Rocky?
No, I'm going to talk about one point of this when we're all done. We're getting towards the end, how all these movies are tied together by one thing that I noticed.
Ooh,
and,
cool.
And I talked about it in the chat with Chad, but I don't want to do it until we talk about the final movie.
Absolutely. Yeah. Really quick, favorite Rocky movie, Dan? Is it this one or would you?
Oh, it's Rocky.
Yeah.
Rocky 4 is my ultimate guilty pleasure.
Right,
So
like that's your favorite, but
10
this
years
is
old.
like your best one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, I was 10 years old. Russians versus Americans? That Rocky 4 is that thing that when you're a 10-year-old, you're like, yeah, man.
I think of the classics, Rocky 4 is my favorite, but like I think this or the second one's probably the best. But I will say right now, I think Creed is my favorite and the best of all of the.
I think I want to do a ranking on my channel, like of all of it, but like I think it's kind of a tie between Rocky and Creed, like the first Rocky, first Creed.
And I'll say Creed 3, given a run for its money.
It's so good.
I haven't rewatched since the co-star became a little bit of a problem, but same can be said about the main star of this one. So we'll carry on. Creed though, go check out Creed. We won't get to talk about it on this show, but he should have won an Oscar for Creed, Sylvester Stallone. I'll say that now. Maybe he'll win.
Bridge of Spies he didn't deserve it for Creed.
Mark Rylance.
Stallone really brings it. You just see his type of. Just go back to this movie and then look at that movie. Like, wow, how does this guy not win?
Yeah, it's funny because I think we'll talk about it later with awards, but I think honestly, Sylvester Stallone, it almost feels at times that he's not even performing because he just is this character in a way. But there's a lot to playing yourself, and I think this was the big Kieran Culkin argument of a few months ago where people were like, he's playing himself, why should he win an Oscar? I'm like, that's a hard thing to do, is to bring yourself into a role. And I think that's the thing is, like Creed, it actually feels though that he's giving an evolved like performance in a way that you didn't even see with the Rocky movies, which I think is so, like Rocky 4 when Apollo dies is where you see a lot of it, and Mickey's death 2 and 3, but like, I mean, like, he's acting in Creed in a degree that we'd never seen before from him. So it's a shame. He's a Pickle Award winner for Suicide Squad. That's all I'll say. For Best Voice Actor. So, King Shark. Yeah. So I got it covered. But Rocky does win quite a lot of big ones at the Academy Awards. Only wins 3 awards total, but out of 10, it wins the 3 big ones. Picture, director for John G. Avildsen, and film editing. And then it's nominated for Best Actor for Sylvester Stallone, Best Actress for Talia Shire, Best Supporting Actor for Burgess Meredith, Best Supporting Actor again for Burt Young, Best Original Screenplay, Best Original Song for Gonna Fly Now, and Best Sound. We saw Rocky outrun a train in, is it this one or the second one? I forget. Maybe he doesn't outrun a train, but
this one.
Yeah, I feel like in one of them or maybe they parodied that with Incredibles or something. But can he outrun? This is my segue. Can he outrun a taxi?
I think he pulls a train.
Maybe he pulls a train. Yeah, but we see him run really fast. So
one of them he pulls a train, or he's pulling the train on the tracks. I believe. Am I wrong on that?
Yes, he definitely pulls a train in one of them. I feel like it might be the one where Creed is training him in 4 or in 3 maybe. But Eye of the Tiger. Either way though, like Rocky, we see him run really fast. I mean, it's in our picture this intro. The shot of him, the shot of him running really fast. But could he outrun the sweet driver skills of one taxi driver? I don't know. That segue was not great, but listen, I haven't had all day to think about them. I just finished watching Taxi Driver a few hours ago. So, Chad, tell us about Taxi Driver.
You talking to me? You talking to me, Dill? I mean, I guess you could be talking to Dan, but I think you're talking to me.
I mean, I'm here. I'm right here.
Taxi Driver, directed by Martin Scorsese, written by Paul Schrader, cinematography by Michael Chapman, music by Bernard Herrmann, starring Robert De Niro, Jodie Foster, Sybil Shepherd, Harvey Keitel, Albert Brooks, Leonard Harris, Peter Boyle, Martin Scorsese is in this, Harry Northrop, Victor Argo, and Joe Spinell. I think it hasn't been since a quiz show that we've seen Martin Scorsese actually be in a movie, right?
Yeah, I mean, I covered Shark Tale on Framewreck, and he was in that, but
I mean, I'll picture this.
He was in the end of Killers of the Flower Moon, I believe.
That's right. That he did show up in that.
Yes,
right.
And
yes.
if you guys get to it, he's in the studio. So good. So good.
Synopsis. A taxi driver works the streets of New York City and only sees filth around him. When he
Yeah.
finds himself disillusioned on the outskirts of society, he decides to take matters into his own hands to clean up the city.
Yeah. You mentioned Bernard Herrmann. Just a fun fact. I know we were kind of losing our minds when we found out that Troisi died a week after Il Postino was wrapped, the lead actor. But Bernard Herrmann died mere hours after the score was finished for this film.
Holy shit.
So he finished his final composition and died a few hours later. So,
Wow.
I mean... what a boss. Literally one of the greatest composers
That's
of all time.
incredible.
He was Hitchcock's composer, for anyone listening out there that doesn't know, like the Psycho theme, that's Bernard Herrmann.
Oh,
So
right.
yeah. And I will just say, first and foremost, because it is the first thing you hear in this film, the first thing you absorb, one of my favorite film scores of all time. Like I just can't believe this didn't win an Oscar. Sorry. Yeah, just one of the best scores I've ever heard in my life. Anyway, sorry. I'll let you guys continue. Talk about Taxi Driver, someone.
I'll tell you this, guys. I've been on Picture This numerous amount of times. I've talked ad nauseum about Martin Scorsese, Robert De Niro, my favorite director of all time, my favorite actor of all time. I said in the Raging Bull episode that was my favorite performance of his, but this is probably one of the most relatable performances for me as a person. I really relate. I know, hope it doesn't come across the wrong way. I really relate to Travis Bickle on a human level as a person. I really feel a lot of the ways he feels about life and about society and about women and about how it's hard getting from day to day. It's a struggle. Every day is a struggle getting from day to day. You know, he can't sleep driving this cab. He drives a cab at night because he can't sleep. You know, I'm the same way. I can't sleep. If I could just sleep all the time and never wake up, sometimes I feel like that. That's how I feel, because I'm just so tired. I'm literally tired all the time, you know. And this movie really resonates with me on a personal level, because I feel like, you know, I've lived society. I've lived in society for such a long time. You know, I was an alcoholic and I stopped drinking because it really made me an angry person for quite a while, you know, and I'm not as angry as I used to be. I'm really not that angry at all anymore, like I used to be. When
Sylvester Stallone lost the Oscar.
Well, that's all in good
bring
fun.
Up ordinary people.
that's all in good fun, and we're all.
I know.
Movies. We're all. It's all in good fun. But
I'm messing.
Now, look, this character is going to come across as the type of character, Travis Bickle, where, like, how can you like this person? How can you find anything relatable about this person? Well, I find quite a bit relatable about this person. I feel his struggles with like why are people doing this stuff with politics? You know, in Betsy, he sees the outer part of Betsy. She's gorgeous. She's smoking hot, you know, and he wants to be with her, but he has no clue that taking her to a porno movie is the wrong thing to do, because he doesn't have the social skills like a lot of people have. And so he makes a tragic mistake regarding Betsy by taking her to the porno film, the Swiss or Norwegian porno or whatever it was. I know it was a foreign film, porno or whatever it was, but
it almost seemed like a documentary. It was almost like a history of just the way it sounded. I was like, really? I didn't know that existed, like a international porn documentary. But
and then he doesn't know how to take no once she doesn't want to be with. Why? What did I do wrong? Why? What's so bad about me? You know, I felt that. I felt like that with women. He's like, what's wrong with me? What did I do? What did I say? You know, and you just act like yourself. You act like you're who you are, right? But what's wrong with that? You being you, you know what I mean? And it's a struggle. It's a struggle for a lot of people, a lot of men, you know, especially my age. And Travis Bickle was in his 20s at this time. And I had a struggle. I was struggling at that time, trying to find women and trying to find dates and stuff like that, you know? And the guns, I never owned a gun in my entire life. Still don't own a gun to this day. Do not own a gun. Have I fired guns? Yes, I have fired guns. That part of it is really going to the next level. But the fact of the matter is, there are people out there just like this person. I've seen people take photos of themselves with 30 guns on the bed. Like they're some kind of macho man or something. I got 30 guns or whatever. You know what I mean? And the savior, the white savior thing with him and Iris, I've been involved in a white savior situation multiple times where I've tried to help kids out. I've tried to help athletes out because I coach football and I've coached basketball, and I've saved an old lady from having her purse stolen from a thief, and ran down the street and tackled a guy. The guy pulled a screwdriver to my throat. I've been the white savior, so I know how it feels trying to, like, you want to be something, you want to matter to people, and I feel like there's such a relatableness to Travis Bickle in this performance by Robert De Niro. I just and Scorsese, just to get on that scene with him in the car. Oh, I didn't say run the meter. I didn't say you just sit there. Sit there. I'm just gonna sit here. I want you just to sit there. But see that window up there? I love that scene. That scene is so freaking amazing. But one of the things I love about this movie as a whole is its cinematography and the filmmaking style. You see the steam coming up from the manhole cover, the streets. You see how when the cab's riding, the credits, the opening credits and the closing credits are some of the best credits I have ever seen. Just the hustle and bustle of the street, the people walking down the sidewalk, all that stuff is just brilliantly shot by Martin Scorsese. I love so much of the way this movie was shot and how it just makes New York a character in the movie, which I'll get to at the end. But,
for sure.
I talked a while, so go ahead.
No, I love it. I mean, that's why we love having you on, especially for Scorsese and Robert De Niro films, because you've covered quite a bunch of them with us, and just there's something that draws you in, and I think you shouldn't feel wrong for connecting to him, because I think a lot of the harrowing stuff in the film is the fact that it is a relatable character, even though he's not morally right in a lot of aspects. And I think they do have the sequences with the guns and certain things to make it known that he's not a good person at the end of the day, but they give you enough to also understand why you can see some of yourself in him and why people like this feel this way. People who obviously came out of war feel this way. And what that has to say, there's so much to unpack with that. And just what you said also about the masculinity and the hero complex and the relationship with women and the idea that, a woman rejects him, that's bad enough, but then she has her man she runs to. She has her pimp she runs to. What does that do to him? Fuels his anger and his competition, his competitive side, all that. So much to unpack with what you said, but I want to go to Chad first, because I know that we both have covered quite a bunch of his work, so we still have more to go, but I think we covered Hugo, Killers of the Flower Moon, Wolf of Wall Street so far, and Goodfellas. Is that all of them? And Raging Bull. So this is our sixth, and Gangs of New York. So this is our seventh Scorsese film we're covering. We still got a few more at least. So Chad, what do you think of this one?
Yeah, and with Scorsese, I kind of feel like, if you're not well versed in his films, he's the mob movie guy, and because of that, a lot of the times, before I started to really get more into his movies, I was like, I don't really care that much for Martin Scorsese, as a director, even though he has made some great mob movies. I love when I can see some of his other movies that aren't in that kind of ilk, because those tend to be my favorite ones. Hugo is my favorite Scorsese movie. So I think it's just brilliant and just different. But I also love Taxi Driver. I just have always thought that this was a pretty incredible movie. It is very kind of pessimistic about society, because you have the pleasantness over here, but then you're living in the grimy part of it, the part of with the psyche of a guy who is problematic in a lot of ways, but also, like Dan was saying, people really feel like this, and not everyone feels like this and then does what Travis Bickle does. Even though he is, he has good intentions. He's going to save a young girl who's being prostituted, and sold into that life. And then you even see he gets her parents thank him and say, you're always welcome here and stuff like that. So he does good stuff, but he also kills people, and he is despises like a lot of people who are kind of just like living their lives and stuff and whatnot, but so you get to see kind of back in the 70s, whereas we're dealing with a lot of now people who are kind of like self-ascribed and like, also like subscribed just in general as like incel and, stuff like that, who, kind of, feel that way where it's like, women don't like me kind of a deal. And then they end up lashing out in different ways. I feel like that is kind of like what's happening here with this guy. You get to see like kind of like someone who hates the fringes of society, but is also kind of living on the fringe of society himself and starts to, like collect guns. And you have that scene. I feel like the whole character change, that the character arc that you get with Travis Bickle is just so fascinating because it is like a precursor to stuff like Breaking Bad.
Mm-hmm.
Where you see
oh my God, yeah.
Change. And that whole scene where he's like, the guy comes to his room and is, opening up a briefcase of guns. I'm like, you get that scene in Breaking Bad too. And I love to see that. And then you get the mohawk and he's like, I'm going to take care of my body now and, do all this stuff so I can train for like some war that's coming up or whatever. And like fight the scourges of society and stuff.
Culture war.
Yeah. And I don't know. Yeah. I like you guys are saying, it's shot super well. It's got an incredible music. I think this is just an incredible performance from Robert De Niro. Jodie Foster's great in it as like a little kid in the movie. She's feels like it's because she had to like kind of grow up in a way, I feel like, as this character, that she behaves like an adult, but she's a kid. So it's, it's very interesting, kind of like the Haley Steinfeld and True Grit and, stuff like that, it feels like one of those types of performances. And, that's
she's also in Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore.
Yeah. I haven't seen that one, but I am excited to. But I do think this is an incredible movie. I think Paul Schrader kind of rules. Like I love First Reformed and some other stuff. I don't know if there's stuff about him that I don't know, but I think like his writing. I mean,
he's a very talented writer. Yes.
He wrote Raging Bull too.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, that collaboration was so good. Yeah, the writing in this thing, and it's funny because the most notable line is an improv from Robert De Niro, the "You Talk to Me," which actually is kind of the basis of Chad, your show on your channel. You rank it with me.
Right.
So
yeah,
pretty cool. That's all De Niro. Yeah, no, I love what you guys have been saying about it. Like, I just think it's so fascinating because, I love how you were talking about, like, how he wants to not be part of it, but then he ends up becoming a part of certain cultural trends and stuff. I think it just comes down to being loneliness and not knowing what he wants to do. And, he thinks that girl's pretty, so, okay, he's going to hang all these, like, political stickers around his room, even though he also wants to assassinate the guy because he feels like he's consuming all of her time and attention, and he wants the attention, and he feels like it's responsible for Vietnam. And I think the war aspect is so interesting, too, because it's like, yes, this is something that's relatable, like these veterans, what they go through, but it doesn't excuse the behavior either. And I think that's part of it, too, is understanding where they're coming from, but knowing that none of the actions are excused. And even when he is a hero, when he saves Jodie Foster at the end, it's like, he's still shooting these people in the face in front of this child. That's going to scar that girl for life. Yes, you're going to take her away from a really terrible situation, but you're putting her now into a whole nother mindset of trauma in the process. And it's like the same thing with the guy he kills in the convenience store. It's like, yes, you're saving that guy from getting robbed, but you're literally taking the life of someone, especially when you bring in the race element of things too. And we know how the racial tensions were around this time with like Defy Bloods and the Vietnam War and just the tensions of race at the time. And, that whole concept as well, which brings me to a really cool theory I have, which it might be a theory other people have, but I know, Dan, you were talking about like the Scorsese scene and how good it is. I wonder how much of this film, because I mean, a Taxi Driver, the whole idea is that people come in and out of the car. You get these little snippets of people's daily lives and conversations. I do sometimes wonder how many of these people are actually people, or how much of it is his own brain kind of creating these figmented
A
the
Beautiful
personifications, you know, yeah, like
Schizophrenic.
because I was watching the Scorsese scene and it really, I was wondering, I was like, maybe this could be a dream, because I think it's also how the way Scorsese films it, it's so dreamlike, you know, it deals a lot in the kind of dreamlike imagery and the daydreamingness and the kind of haziness, that insomnia feeling that Dan was talking about, of like not being able to sleep and wanting to, and you know, he is a cab driver, he obviously has people come in and out, but I don't even know if at the end the woman getting into his car is there or not. Like, it could just be his own kind of acceptance and self-reflection. And it makes me wonder, just because I think this is one of those films that if you interpret it that way, it could mean a lot of other things. Like, why does he drive up and look at that woman's silhouette in the window? And, you know, that kind of introduces the whole racist angle as well. Like, oh, she's with a black man. And then the very next scene, he's shooting a black guy at a convenience store. Is it, you know, is it his own ideas coming to fruition through these other characters kind of letting him accept the ideas? Like, if they said it, then I can accept this, and I'm not wrong for thinking this way because that's what they told me. But are these people telling you these things really there or not? I just thought it was an interesting thing to kind of think about, because there is so much about how, you know, when you're introduced to this character through other people, he's always at a distance. You know, they're like, look at that guy just staring at me through the car window, like the guy sitting outside there, and it's like, you know, he's very distant from reality, and it almost feels like a lot of the times when he is connecting with people, it's through his own kind of crazy, messed up brain in a way.
Like
And that's what I think is so fascinating.
Like the FBI agent, where he's just lying to him and giving him this name and address from someplace. Like he knows he's lying to this guy. He knows he's giving him false information because the guy's probably caught on to him somehow.
Which is why the You Talking to Me scene is so cool, because it's like this whole time he's been kind of making up these other figments of his imagination, to where now he himself is his own character that he speaks to in the mirror, and then that's when he shaves his head, because now he's a new person. Travis Bickle himself, the old Travis Bickle, is now just one of his many imaginary characters in his head. I don't know, I just think that's kind of like my interpretation, at least this time, because, you know, it is so dreamy, and it is almost presented in a relaxing way. It's almost a soothing kind of dreariness, like, you know, the rain and what until it's not. Yes,
not like
yes,
with the
yes,
violence and
right,
yeah,
right.
well,
But even the music,
supposed to be Scorsese, you know, he couldn't.
Right.
The guy that was supposed to be that character backed out or didn't show up.
I think he had like an injury or something. He had hurt his head or something.
Scorsese ended up taking off the character. But as Scorsese's in the movie twice.
Yes.
He's at the beginning when they're showing the political office.
Yeah. When you first see her, Betsy, walk up, it's almost like this angelic. He's sitting with a cigarette sitting in the background.
So he's in the movie twice.
And I think he's great. Like, I think I could do something really cool later, but I'm not. But I thought, what if I pick Martin Scorsese for my best performance? Because I really do think he is so good in this. It's just there's so many other great performances. I can't do that.
I do want to reach through some days and just say, no, don't pick that person. But
like
on my show, I understand.
But in a year where Ned Beatty's nominated for Network and Beatrice Straight wins, like, why not Martin? Because he is, I think, this is one of the scariest non-horror movie characters, just because of how blunt and how upfront and honest he is. And the line where he's like, you know, you put a revolver up there or something, like, I'm not using the terminology, but like stuff like that. And it's Martin Scorsese too, so you know it's icky, but it's so good. It's so good.
It's one of those things where like you actually are fine with Martin Scorsese putting himself in his movies. He's no Quentin Tarantino in that.
No, he's actually a good actor. Yeah, and it's not his own writing, so it's like I saw a review where someone was like, "Wow, Martin Scorsese put himself in the role where he gets to say the N-word slur," and I'm like, that is A, Paul Schrader's writing, B, the actor dropped out last minute, he stepped in. It has nothing to do with him wanting to say this word. Whereas Quentin Tarantino, it's like, you wrote the script, you put yourself in the role, like, you can control how many N-words you drop. And I'm not going to, you know, it's historically accurate to the movies he makes. I'm not going to say that he's a bad person for that.
I like hearing Dylan's thoughts so much. Why I love doing the show is because I always take things so much at face value that Dylan comes in and goes, what if? And I'm just like, oh shit, because like he has another great theory that you can check out on our friend Matt's channel about Marriage Story. That is kind of like a what if the movie's actually this. And I'm like, whoa.
And I think regardless whether or not it's actual people in the cab or not, like, I think he is just the type of person. I think the thing that's interesting about Travis Bickle is what he hears. I think he kind of almost takes the wrong lessons from or reinterprets differently, or he very much mooches off of the people around him because he doesn't know where to go. He's a lost puppy in a way, and that's why it's so kind of sad to see his decline, because he just kind of clings on to what he knows. Oh, this is the girl I'm into. She's into this political shit. Okay, I'm into it too. Oh, she broke up with me. Okay, I want to assassinate this guy. Okay, this child needs help. Like, it's just so interesting because he is a hero in some respects, but he's not. He's definitely not. He's not someone to be admired. It's the Fight Club thing of like people who end up watching this film and being like, he is one of the best like heroes of cinema. It's like he does heroic things, but that does not make him a hero. He's an anti-hero, if anything.
It's like what you get, like you guys are talking about. It's about loneliness and PTSD and stuff like that, and it's about what happens with these unassuming people that kind of like stick to themselves and stuff like that, like, or keep to themselves. It's like, what are they going to end up doing? Like, maybe they just like live a quiet life, or like maybe they're actually like there's something dark, a dark underbelly beneath it. Not always, and stuff like that. So it's almost like that's why people need therapy and like a good social support system and things like that. And like how would have Bickle been different had he gotten those things? But I did have one other like connection I just thought about is you take Network and you take Taxi Driver, you put them together and you get Nightcrawler.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, you really do. You got
Which
Nightcrawler.
should have been a Best Picture nominee because that movie rules.
It is really cool to see all the influence though, because like when Joker came out, everyone was like, it's just Taxi Driver meets King of Comedy, and I think it's because Scorsese is able to do something so broad. Like, because the story is very simple and basic, but it's the character work that is so nuanced and integral and so intense and personal that like as many imitators as it has, nothing could beat the original.
I mean, you can kind of even see like where Joker just feels kind of like a too on the nose copy of those things,
right?
Maybe
another
not
Schrader script too. It's another Schrader script.
Schrader did Joker? I didn't even realize. King of Comedy. Gotcha.
Oh, right.
I thought you meant Joker. I was like, no way. That film was not written by Paul
that's
Schrader.
Todd Haynes. I believe, right? Yeah.
But that's the thing. Like, it's not this. The things they're copying are the wrong things to be copying. What they're taking from it are the plot beats and the idea of the guy going crazy and shooting people in the face. But it's not that. It's what's inside that I think that film. We'll talk about it because it somehow got nominated for Best Picture.
Scorsese was supposed to direct Joker. Believe it or not, go look back at the story.
See why he didn't.
He's actually a producer on it, but he was attached to this as a director of Joker, and he, for whatever reason, decided to do something else. I don't remember what the whole story was, but
I'm fine with it.
I mean, Todd Haynes do it. That's fine. I mean, I still love the movie. If you don't like it, you don't like it. But I think Joker's amazing because I'm a massive fan.
Not Todd Haynes. Todd Phillips. Sorry.
Todd Phillips. My bad. Todd
Haynes is the May December guy. Yeah. No, I would love to see his Joker. See what that is.
Todd Phillips. My fault.
No, you're good. You're good.
But I love Taxi Driver and King of Comedy so much. So to see a mashup of those two, and with the Joker, to me was like perfect. I mean, it was just perfect for me. Maybe it's just me who I am as a person. But no, I want to real quick go off of what something Chad said though, which is like this is a subsection of America, and this is a culture of American people where people are just sad. Like every day I think about I don't want to go to work. And every day I think about, things I shouldn't be thinking about regarding, why do I hate my job, or why do I hate life, or why do I hate society? And this is an early precursor of what we have in life today. Yeah. Am I going out shooting everybody? No, I'm not. I don't even own a gun. Never owned a gun in my entire life. But it just feels like you have these thoughts in your head about life and about the world and politics and about, like people, you know what I mean? And it's just like, why do people have this kind of thought process? We have he who must not be named in Magazine Dreams, you know what I mean? Who did things because of something happening. Now this guy's canceled forever, you know what I mean? But if you watch that movie, it's really owes itself to Taxi Driver. It's a lot similar to Taxi Driver in a lot of ways, but it's a different type of character. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Taxi Drivers, I hope it doesn't go down as this movie that the subsection of America, these types of people that are going to be like there was a song a few years ago from a rock band, and the song is called Let the Bodies Hit the Floor, and a psycho killer killed somebody in Arizona using this song. And so now this song is attributed to an assassination in Arizona.
Yeah.
And so now, but I don't want Taxi Driver to do that. I don't want this movie to be attributed to incels, like you said, Chad.
Well,
and
it's the Joker thing too. That happened with Joker too.
Yeah. You know, and I kind of feel I love this movie so much. I resonate with it so much, but I also don't want it to be that, oh, look, Taxi Driver, this guy was influenced by Taxi Driver. Then it puts a bad taste on a great film.
Well, and I think that's why they do such a good job showing the other side of it too, and making sure, you know, to give you all the background you need to understand that he's not going about things the right way. And yeah, I think that's where the balance is so tricky, but also done so well in this, is understanding why he does what he does, but not advocating for it, but also giving empathy to it at the same time. I mean, it's a very complicated character study. Yeah, go ahead, Chad.
Yeah, no, it's just great because like they put you in his shoes, in that perspective, so that you can see where he's coming from, and then you can see, you know, where he might have gone wrong. Yeah.
Anything else on the visuals? I just feel like we touched it, but it's just so like I could talk about the visuals of this thing for years. Like,
especially in the 4K. I don't know what version you watched, but just the steam coming up from the road, the lights, all the it just. And before we end this entire thing, there's one point I want to make about all of these movies, tying all these movies together.
Please do.
And that's the locations.
Exactly. Yeah.
New York is so just a character in Taxi Driver. I mean, it's like, wow, it's you feel like you're in New York. And I've never been to New York my entire life. Well, George Washington Bridge through New York. If you call that being in New York, that I don't call that being in New York. Taking that,
we'll get you up here someday.
Yeah, I do. I want to go. I want to go so bad. But it's like, wow, look through the life of a taxi driver. You get to see these streets, the corners, the side streets, the nice areas, the traffic, all this types of stuff in New York. And I felt like, and then Philadelphia in Rocky, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It was like, wow. You feel like the griminess, the cold, the weather was all just a part of it all. And then the Dust Bowl, and then that vegetable, the farming and all that kind of stuff, the two dichotomies of where Woody Guthrie was from in Bound for Glory. But then Washington, D.C., you get the guy across the street and you get him through the window, seeing these guys, and they're going through the drawers and they're going through the stuff, and then you see them guys running around to sections of housing areas and running up the street. He's running in a car, he's running after him, or they're walking, they're in garages. Every one of the settings of all of these movies are like a character in the movie itself. It's like if it was filmed somewhere else, if it was about somewhere else, it wouldn't resonate as much as each one of the locations and places these movies all took place were so intrinsic into these stories and these films to me. And I was like, wow, that ties all these movies together in a way that's so incredible to me in this slate of Best Picture nominees.
I'd agree. I mean, it's an authenticity too. It's the idea of also the performers. Like, I think they make up the setting in a way. Like, you're getting Jodie Foster, who's so young and just green when it comes to acting, but that's perfect for her role because she has to be a little bit more naive in a way at times, but also still have a strength to her, which she has just by nature of her being Jodie Foster. But that's what we talked about with Rocky, the fact that the people they make some questionable decisions. Like, you're mad at Paulie for throwing the turkey out the window, but it makes sense because you know what these people are like, because they are a tapestry of the place they're in. Same as Network, just the types of people that work at those places. Like, you may hate them, but that's what they're like. Same as this. It's all about the process and the use of the atmosphere through the personalities as well, because New York has a personality not just in its setting, but in its people. And I think you see that a lot here too. Even Albert Brooks' character is so great, just the way he's a little bit more mousy, and just that dichotomy between him and Robert De Niro, when in actuality, he's the one protecting the woman, not Robert De Niro. He wants to be the one protecting the woman, but no, like he's the one who stands up for this girl, even though he's the meek little nerdy guy who works at the, political
But he has
center.
ulterior motives. He's the clean cut guy that's like, okay,
right,
but I still want to get in her pants.
Right. And then that's the thing, is showing that they're more alike than they are different. But at the same time, they all have different ways about going about things, and one is a much more problematic figure than the other. I just think it's so fascinating. Yeah, and that's such a good point. Just the use of space and atmosphere just adds so much. And I think that's why the 70s in general is such a great decade for films, because everything is so rooted in authenticity. And I mean, you look at Godfather, just going to Italy and Sicily and getting those shots, and the wedding, feeling like you're at that party. There's very few films in the 70s that are nominated for Best Picture that feel like these big productions of Hollywood. Star Wars is one. I mean,
beside
that's it.
The
and even that, I don't even think that was nominated. Yeah, but that's the thing.
Those are just massive production.
Yeah,
there's a few of them.
Right, the only film set in this slate is probably the fighting scene in Rocky, and even then they probably use an actual, stage ring, I should say. But anyway, Chad, anything else on Taxi Driver or the slate in terms of its atmosphere? Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to comment on what Dan was talking about, because like I think subconsciously I got that I was like, there's something with all these movies together that is fascinating. There's a fascinating combination of movies that it's sad that only one could have won, because I think so many of these could have won Best Picture. Maybe except for one. But
I wonder which one.
But it still has the atmosphere that really ties it to the other four.
Yeah, but I 100% agree, where I just think that, like, that's the Philly movie, that's the New York movie, that's the DC movie, and it just like but the way they use the locations, I think is so fantastic, and that's what they talk about is like, some of the great movies where they actually, the way, like Dylan was talking about, the way you use space and the way that like you inform the audience about like how this thing actually looks. Instead of like having just a narrow view, you just kind of open it up and you get to show the different perspectives and stuff. So yeah, I think that's a great point. And oh man, this slate just
I know. I feel like we're talking in circles a little bit just because we want to delay the inevitable of having to rank these. But I think I have a good idea of what our 5s and 1s are at this point, but I don't know. Maybe not even ones. I don't know.
I'm trying to figure out what my one is. I have 2 battling for my 1 right now.
You all didn't want to be in that. None of us wanted to be living in that area of the country with that Dust Bowl. That was just like miserable. You could just look at it and you're like, this is miserable.
That one shot when of the Dust Bowl coming.
Oh yeah.
Carrie was not looking up at the screen at the time, and I went, Carrie, it looks like Twister right now. This is insane. Like, look at that shit. What is going on? How are they not running for their lives?
This has actually happened in this country.
Yeah.
And that's what's so unbelievable about how terrible that is,
Yeah.
Don't, sorry.
No, it's good. I'm glad we're talking about it. I mean, that's the thing. I love talking about all this stuff. But we do have to wrap up Taxi Driver because it does get some nominees that I want to mention. It doesn't win anything. This was considered the number 5 on the day, probably just because Martin Scorsese wasn't the Martin Scorsese we know now yet. I think Raging Bull really opened that door in a big way. This was like the first film of his that got a lot of attention, I think. But 4 nominees, gets nominated for picture, actor for Robert De Niro, supporting actress for Jodie Foster, and original score. So the only one of the 5, Bound for Glory also not nominated for director, which is interesting, even though some would say this is perhaps the best film by the best director to ever live. So just goes to show it's a snapshot of the time. So even though he wasn't nominated, this does not make this a lesser Scorsese film because he wasn't nominated for director. It just means that his time would come, and we'll get to The Departed someday. We still have to get to The Departed, Irishman, What else do we have to cover on the show that we haven't yet for him? Oh, and The Aviator, I think those are the three.
Yeah, which
there might be.
I've been commissioning to be on that episode.
I don't remember if Age of Innocence was nominated. Was it? No. Okay.
Oh,
so it's probably just those three. I think.
What a slot that is.
Oh no. We disagree there, but it's okay. We will get to we'll get to that someday. But we do have to rank these 5 films because oh gosh, it's a tough task, but we have to do it. That's part of our show. We may have our first ever wheel spin. I think that might happen, but we'll see. Maybe not. Maybe it'll just be a coin flip. But Dan, you are our guest, so I have to ask you first. What is your number 5?
Yeah, I first watches, second watches, 10th watches, 12th watches, whatever. I absolutely loved all 5 of these movies. This isn't one of those ones where one is a piece of garbage. What the heck were they thinking? Mm-hmm. Every one of these movies is really good. Yeah. And I was glad to have watched this one for the first time. And I'm definitely going to go out and watch it again sometime. Maybe do the double again with A Complete Unknown. So, but I'm going to have to say Bound for Glory.
Yeah. Chad, is that your number 5?
Bound for Glory is also my number 5. I will say it is just a step below, the rest of the slate, but not like a huge step. I also do think it's a really good movie.
I put it at 5. I am probably the one of the 3 of us who's lowest on it, but I still think it's good. I don't think it's bad. It's just compared to the other 4, this is the one where when I was watching the binge, I remember the least about it. But it's because the other 4 are, I would say, masterpieces in a way, or maybe close to their director's masterpieces. Dan, what is your number 4?
Yeah, I just, in hindsight, watching it over and again, I've seen it multiple times. It just makes me upset that it won so many awards and other movies that I liked more didn't win more and didn't win more deserving awards that I felt like you think about. When you think about those other movies, you think, these movies won awards. Wait a minute, they didn't. Oh my God, this movie? Okay, never mind. Number 4, Network.
Okay. Chad, what's your number 4?
My number 4, it pains me to do it, but All the President's Men.
All right. I am also putting one of your films at 4, and it is going to be All the President's Men. That is my number 4. So, Dan, we're back to you. Number 3, what's it going to be?
A movie that I've watched dozens of times. A movie that is so relatable today. I just wish people would use this in. I wish movies. I've been advocating for movies as history, as a class in history, using movies as a history class. You go through history using movies as something that high schools should have a class like this, but all colleges should have a history class about movies using historical movies like this. And I think one of the best dealing with history, a specific time in history, and that's All the President's Men. It's amazing movie, and I love everything about this movie. It's hard to put this movie at 3.
Cool. Chad, what's your number 3?
Yeah, no, this is very, very tough because the movie that I love, still putting it into number 3, Taxi Driver.
Okay. There we go. Taxi Driver, number 3 for Chad. We may be getting a wheel spin. We'll see. My number 3, just because I feel like the other 2, one is more of a favorite. One I could just say confidently, I think on this rewatch, I was like, this is a masterpiece. This one is still the one where I have a few more layers to pull. So I'll put Network at 3. Network is going to be my 3. So Dan, what is going to be your number 2?
Well, you guys know me. I mean, I've been trying to get my other.
I know you, but I have no idea what your number 1 is now.
You guys, sports movies is my jam. As you guys know, I am a massive sports movies fan. And one of my favorites of all time is Rocky. But there's something about the last movie that we haven't mentioned that is so much more relatable to me and so much it fits me as a person more. I love the underdog story of Rocky. I just love everything about Rocky. If this other movie wasn't in this group, Rocky would be my number 1 right now because I absolutely love this movie. I've watched it dozens and dozens and dozens of times, but I have to put Rocky at 2.
Okay. Rocky at 2. Chad, what is going to be your number 2?
That actually surprises me. I could have sworn I thought Dan was going to go Rocky #1, but I also get
I did predict his number one correctly just because of who his favorite director and actor are. But I agree. It was I thought it was Dan's 1 and 2 was probably the closest of any of our 1 and 2s. I would say.
Yeah. This is really tough because like these 1 and 2, I'm like I could see either being the best movie of the slate, and I still don't know what to do, but I think I'm gonna go with what I initially was gonna do and go with my gut. I'm gonna put Network at number 2.
All right. And then at number 2, I already wrote down my ranking ahead of time, so I'm not trying to manipulate anything. So my hands are up. I'm just gonna say Rocky is also my number 2. So one of them that's like my nostalgic fave, but there was one that I just when I rewatched, I was like, that is the masterpiece of the bunch of 4 masterpieces. I think I can confidently say all 4 are incredible. But Dan, that means your number 1 is the same as my number 1. But what is your number 1, Dan?
My number 1 is Taxi Driver, and it's because there's just so much relatable material in this movie to me personally as a human being, and I just feel like the world is such a hard place, and life is such a hard place. And when you're on your own and you don't have anybody, and you're struggling every day to go to work and pay your bills and live your life and put food on your table and put gas in your car and interact with people that you absolutely cannot stand, it's hard. Life is hard. And the movie that I've always resonated with that deals with a similar character to me as a human being without the guns. I don't have a gun, never owned a gun. And that's Travis Bickle. And so I have Taxi Driver at number 1.
All right. And Chad, tell us about your number 1. What's your number 1?
Number 1 is Rocky. Yeah, it may be a a populist, like, crowd pleasing kind of film, like, movies, also other movies I love, like Coda. But I think like some of these movies that are populist, crowd pleasing stuff can also have really deep stuff in them as well. And I don't know. I just really think Rocky was the right choice to go there. However, we're also kind of pulling a different upset here. Yeah.
I'll tell you right now, the 2 favorites of the Oscars are not winning our prize today.
Right.
They are 3 and 4. But my number 1 is Taxi Driver. It's just the one that when I rewatch, I was like, no, this is. I wasn't giving it the credit it deserved before. All these movies really, like Taxi Driver, Network. I was always kind of like, I appreciate it, but I don't love it. But this time I watched it. I love them both. And Rocky was one that I was always like, not my favorite of the franchise, but it's the first one. So like I like it. Kind of like Toy Story, how I talk about Toy Story. But then you rewatch Toy Story and you're like, no, it's so good. What am I doing? So all these 3 movies really just jumped up. And the other 2 I hadn't seen before, but are still very good in their own ways. But we've run into a predicament that I knew would happen. It's not a 3-way tie, so we don't need a wheel. I thought it could have been a 3-way tie, and then we would have to bring out the wheel. But Taxi Driver is Dan and I's number 1 and Chad's number 3, so that's 5 points. Rocky is Dan and I's number 2 and Chad's 1, that's 5 points. So we have a tie. So what we got to do is we got to flip a coin for Taxi Driver and Rocky, or we can spin a wheel, but I'll just flip a coin. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Dan call the heads or tails before I ask. Dan, would you like heads or tails?
I'll take tails.
Okay, now we have to set what each movie is. So I just alphabetically, Rocky will be heads, Taxi Driver tails. Does that work? Taxi Driver tails. And Dan, you pick tails? All right, so if it's heads, it's Rocky. If it's tails, it is Taxi Driver. All right, here we go. Siri, flip a coin. Heads. It is heads. So it will be Rocky, which will be our pick for Best Picture, which is not bad at all. I mean, that is, and it honestly makes sense because the highest everyone had Rocky was 2 and 1. The lowest anyone had Taxi Driver was 3. So I guess it makes sense with the math that Rocky will be the Best Picture today. Yes.
Honestly, this is one of those coin flips that I would not have been mad either way. Obviously, I kind of wanted Rocky a little bit more.
Yeah.
But like, if Taxi Driver would have won, like, I totally get why you guys put that number 1, and it's crazy to me how I put it number 3.
Yeah, but it's just a
Easily could
strong
be my
slate.
number 2 or my number 1. It's so good.
Just a strong slate. But Rocky is going to be our victor due to the coin flip, and due to
wasn't
it being
the victor in his own movie.
Right. So here's the thing. Yeah, Rocky lost in his own movie, but he won here today, and it won the Academy Award. So in a upset of an upset, Taxi Driver upsetting both All the President's Men and Network as well, Rocky upsetting both at the Academy Awards and here, and we can now confidently say that I guess we're not upset with the upset at the Academy Awards, which is the first time it's happened. Every time we've done this series, we've been bummed at what won, but I think this time we're all in agreement that Rocky is a deserving winner, even though it's not Dan and I's number 1. We're very happy with Rocky winning the Academy Award. Is that correct?
The only like big upset of this episode and the Academy Awards in general is that only one film could win. That's my upset.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good point. But we do have to get to our acting prizes. Dan, you elected to go first for actor, and Chad will go first for actress. So, Dan, let us know. What is your pick for best actor? Which I thought I knew where you were going to go, but now I think I know you're going to go a different way. But either way, it's going to be a great pick.
Yeah, obviously, my favorite actor of all time is Robert De Niro. I think he gives a great performance.
I was wrong.
Great performance here.
Cool.
I just feel like he really puts himself out there as Travis Bickle. I mean, actors put themselves out there as certain characters, like Heath Ledger as the Joker. You know what I mean? And Marlon Brando or Al Pacino as those. This guy put himself out there as this character. He could get so much vitriol around him as a human being for playing this character and what this character stands for. And yet he did it because he knew that this is an important character. This is an important time in history in the 70s. And there was a lot of disrespect for Vietnam vets. There was a lot of disrespect for people that just weren't like happy family with a white picket fence and a couple kids and a car and all this kind of stuff. And this guy was different. And yeah, I grew up at this time and I wasn't an adult at this time, but when I did become an adult, I felt a lot of the ways he feels. I felt a lot of the ways that Travis Bickle feels. And to this day, that's why when I was talking about the movie earlier, I was crying because it really resonates with me as a human being. And, and something, pull back the curtain. I'm in a chat group with Dylan and Chad, and that's separate. That's separate than anything else in the world. And there's a lot of times I say, I love you guys in there, because when you find people that really care about you and you care about them, it's hard. And so I use terms like I love you as a way of saying, I really care about the fact that you guys care about me and include me in your world and your vision of things. And I think this movie and this character played by Robert De Niro is probably the closest to me as a human being of any character I've ever seen in any movie in the history of movies.
Wow.
I feel very strongly about other than the guns, because I don't own a gun, never owned a gun, never shot anybody, none of that stuff. But the other stuff, I care about kids. I care about helping people. I just feel like not enough people get to know me and they don't really understand who I am as a person. But you guys have taken the time out on all kinds of different avenues to take time and spend time with me and maybe one day we'll meet each other in real life and besides on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, you feel like Travis Bickle, but you're not full Travis Bickle because you have a good support system. You have good friends, and I do love seeing the emotion come out because that's what movies do. They're catharsis.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, and I love that it came out for your favorite actor in one of your favorite movies by your favorite director. Honestly, I thought you were going with that before the episode started. Then the episode continued, and I was like, "Oh, he's definitely going the other way." Then you went that way, so I was like, "Okay." I was not expecting you to pick it, but it makes sense. It's your favorite actor. I'm just bummed because it was going to be my choice. And I said I could do the really cool thing about picking Martin Scorsese for Taxi Driver, but there is a performance that I think is just so there's just so many layers to it. It's so nuanced. It's a big flashy performance, and I don't usually love big flashy performances. But I think it makes a lot of sense for this character, and you can see a lot of hurt and a lot of longing in that big, broad, physical stuff. And I also think just the monologues he gives are some of the reasons why this film is so good. So I'm going to pick Peter Finch for Network. I do think that ensemble is so strong that like I could pick him or his co-star that was nominated, or the other co-star who has one scene who was nominated. But I really do think of all of them, when I think of that movie, his parts are the ones that I'm going to think about. And I just think his just has such a captivating aura to him. And I know we were talking earlier about how you were like, how did he beat him, the other person that hasn't been named for Rocky? And I really just think, I don't know, something about it. It's just so, it just commands your attention in a way that like the other performance is so good, but it is also very subtle, surrounded by very colorful characters. And he is so strong and sturdy in that role. But something about Peter Finch in Network is something I have never seen. And I'll be quite honest, I think him passing away had a lot to do with it as well. Just the fact that like they could award him posthumously as a way to honor his memory. And we haven't seen that work all the time with Chadwick Boseman and Anthony Hopkins, of course. But, I think that was another factor that played into it as to why he may have won over the other person that did not win. But I think the person who was robbed for the Oscar was Robert De Niro, if anyone. But I do think Peter Finch is still very deserving. Like, I think he is still my second favorite performance in Network, which we may get to my favorite performance later. We'll see. But yeah, very happy about that. Cool. Chad, you get to pick your actor now.
I didn't think I was gonna get this guy, but like you guys really, really picked the phenomenal performances. I love them so much. So what did I write it down? Yeah, I'm getting my number one. But you guys picked Dan picked my number two, and I didn't put Peter Finch down, but as we were like talking about it, as I was watching Network, I was like, shit. It's like filled with great performances. But I'm picking Sylvester Stallone. Because I think you guys were like nailing it when you're talking about like, how it's not, showy, but it's like it's not in Creed, it feels like a performance. Like he actually like, but in this, it's so naturalistic. Like he just feels like that guy. And yet, like I talked about how, he delivers some of these lines so perfectly. And even when he's like walking around just like saying like whatever, like, about the birds being like candy, or like, talking about Adrian, or, whatever. It's just like he's always kind of mumbling, talking to himself, or, talking to other people, and just, saying random stuff. So like talking about like, hey, you hang around bums, you're going to be a bum. You hang around like riffraff, you're going to be riffraff, kind of a deal. And just like all these things is just like the way he delivers it and the way he trains and like, builds himself up. And, there's just so many, I feel like, levels to this performance as well, even though on the face of it, it might not really seem like that. But I just feel like, he is Rocky. He became that character. And it's why they gave him so many different movies after that, in a franchise, because it is a character that you want to stick with and see, again and again. So Sly, I'm fine with it.
And I was just going to point one thing with you, Chad, is that interaction when Burgess Meredith comes up after he kind of crapped on him earlier in the movie, and he's like walking down the step and he's like yelling at him. He's like,
oh, perfect.
And then he comes running after him, and it's like that cinches it. That's like a phenomenal performance. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's great.
We didn't talk about that until just now, but that scene is incredible.
Such a good scene. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Is I talked about the one scene when he was like, it did bother me when they were talking about me and stuff like that. But like, there's so many different like little scenes like that when you're actually watching the movie. You're like, okay, this movie's actually kind of brilliant. So
yeah, great pick. I mean, there's still so many on the table that I love, like William Holden, Ned Beatty were the other two big ones, but all the guys and all the President's Men. But I think we picked three great ones, three very defining performances for their movies, I think. But we do have to get to the actresses. And Chad, you're going to kick us off now for Best Actress. What are you going to go with?
Well, I was going to go with one for a long time. Then I watched Network again. I'm going Faye Dunaway. I'm sorry, Dylan. I know. I knew I was gonna do.
You do this to me all the time. It's okay. It's okay.
I knew I was gonna do it to you again, but honestly, I freaking had to, because like I watched that movie, and I remember watching the movie before, and then like hearing like the Faye Dunaway stuff, and then I just like from memory, I was like, she even in the movie that much? I just didn't remember the movie that well, and then I watched it again, and I'm like, holy shit. Like every scene, like she's like that driving force. I just like the scene when she's like, talking to the guy, and she's like, I have an idea for how to make your like channel or your network or whatever better, and then she's like, I'm going to take over your network. I just kind of want to be nice about it. I kind of want to like do it the way that seems nice. And she is like this like incredible force, and just I don't know, just the way she delivers these lines is just so, commanding. And it's just like, you don't have her being like that in that movie. Movie just doesn't work. Like, I don't think at all. Cause you need that side of it. And, she's so corrupt in a way. And
ambitious is the word you're looking for.
Vicious. And it's like, it's fantastic because like, I don't feel like you see a lot of women in roles like that. It feels like a very masculine performance in a way.
Yeah,
but like,
exactly.
It's so fascinating to see a woman do that, and showing that like when people are like kind of like women. It's so stupid when people say, but like women wouldn't make great leaders. I'm like, you've seen Faye Dunaway in Network, like people like women can be intense sometimes when given the chance and stuff. So
yeah, would that be her second win or multiple wins?
I was gonna say you gave her the award for Chinatown Dan. So she is now officially on the Hall of Fame. I want to see
Chad.
that year. Did you get the first pick for actress? You must have, because how did I not pick it? Yeah, I think you had the first pick for actress, not actor that year. So, you took Faye first because I remember this. I'm having deja vu right now of wanting Faye Dunaway and being sad. Not because I wanted her so badly, because I just think it's, for me, the other performances are all good, but like this is the one. Now I'm just trying to think.
You should feel validated that like when I was like, that's the one. As soon as I saw Network, I was like, that's it.
Yep, exactly. But now I'm tasked with, do I go with the actual supporting actress winner, even though it's a very unique, inspired choice? It's a really good performance. Or do I go with the person who has the most things to do in their movie? Or do I go with like a happy medium? I'm just gonna go with the best performance. But I don't even know what that is between two. Okay, they're watching me on online saying, Dill, wrap it up. So I'm gonna let Dan put fate into his own hands. I'm gonna pick Talia Shire. It's tough, but I do think when looking at the two performances I'm gonna pick, I think Talia Shire just has more to give, and I'm letting a lot of the other franchise movies inform this in a way. Like if I were to pick Carrie Fisher in Star Wars, like it's for the body of work, but like I don't think there's anything wrong with that because she is just great in all those movies. But I think she's what makes that romance work with him.
Yeah.
I think if she's not doing 100%, it could get in that borderline creepy area, and it already does. But I think she makes it sincere enough to where like she, on her own account, gives in and by her own volition, which I think is good. I just think she's great. Yeah, she has so many great moments at the end too. You see her change a lot as well over the course of the movie. Like it really is a transformative performance. I think of anyone in that movie, she changes the most because I think everyone else is not playing a stereotype, but playing like a very distinct type of character. Yeah. But I think she has the most growth. So I feel good about it. Talia Shire, Coppola, represent. There we go.
I mean, honestly, she was my pick until I saw Network. So I'm glad she gets represented here because cool. I was like, if Jason Schwartzman's mother doesn't make it on,
if I didn't pick her, Dan, you probably would have picked her, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm sorry. Good. We double dipped from.
I knew I had two. My 1 and 2 I was choosing from, so I knew once he picked Faye Dunaway, I was like, I got my 1 and 2, so I knew I could pick one of them. So
so Faye was your number 3.
Yeah.
Okay, so who's left, Dan? Who you picking?
I'm gonna go with Jodie Foster as Iris.
There you
Yeah,
go.
Great pick.
Taxi
Great.
Driver.
Oh, love
good
her
pick.
in that movie.
Great, really good pick. It's
And
fantastic.
yeah, I just love seeing when we can award. She's not young now, but a young actor.
Child actress.
Because
Yeah.
like
Well,
it's just
actor.
like beyond. You knew she was gonna. Well, I didn't. I wasn't around.
Well, wait till
then.
you see
Dan
Alice
was only
doesn't
3,
live here
but
anymore, and you're like, oh, I could see the progression from that to Taxi Driver, and then as the years go on, you see that
What is it?
progression.
Oh, Allison. Yeah. Okay.
You got to see her, and Alice doesn't live here anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, which is
I'm
2
excited.
years earlier, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, yeah, that won Best Actress. So I guess Scorsese had already done the whole thing, but for some reason Taxi Driver wasn't a big Oscar player, but that's okay. We have it for our show. Which means, in recap, our best of my best actors: Peter Finch for Network, Chad's best actor Sylvester Stallone for Rocky, Dan's best actor Robert De Niro for Taxi Driver, my best actress Talia Shire for Rocky, Chad's best actress Faye Dunaway for Network, and Dan's best actress Jodie Foster for Taxi Driver. Our best picture is by coin flip, but it was a tie, but it is by coin flip, Rocky, and 2 people are added to the Hall of Fame. Faye Dunaway, who is in Chinatown and Network, and Jodie Foster now joins the Hall of Fame, having been in Silence of the Lambs and Taxi Driver. And Robert De Niro gets his 3rd. He was already in the Hall of Fame. Now he picks up a 3rd, and I believe every single one of those Dan gave him. Raging Bull, Godfather 2, and now this. And I will tell you, there will be more. I am sure. Probably. I think. Maybe not. But. Yeah, I think there will be more. But yeah, we lined up with the Academy pretty well. We picked their best actor and their best actress and their best picture. So we did really well. We had a great conversation about 5 great films. I think that's it though for 76. Any last comments on 76?
Didn't you guys? I thought you guys changed things up and posthumously were doing director.
Well, we do director based on the films. So, like, if a director's 2 films won, then they're in the Hall of Fame. And this is the first Avildsen film to win.
So I didn't know how you did that.
No, you're good.
You added a new category to it. Okay.
No, so if a director's films win twice, so if Sidney Lumet had won, if Network had won, Sidney Lumet would have been added because we gave it to. Maybe we didn't give it to
12 Angry Men.
No, because we didn't give it to 12 Angry Men, Dog Day, or Verdict. So no, it would have been his first. But either way, Sidney Lumet, a great director. Got to give him his due.
Okay, so I didn't know that.
No, you're all good. Any last thoughts on 76, Chad?
I mean, it's such a brilliant slate. Like, I'm very excited to get to it. I'm sad that it's over, but it was like such a great discussion. I think Dan is always a really interesting guest to have. Very fun because, he just offers like a different perspective. Also being like, a film critic, who gets screeners and stuff like that. And, actually, writes about movies all the time. It's just such a great voice to have on the show. And like I said, I'm just really sad that because like not every day you get slates like this that you're just like this is like at least 3, probably 4 best picture level movies that 3 of them lost. Yeah,
it's crazy. And honestly, it's an upset, but like in retrospect, like it's not like Crash. We're not like, how dare they award Rocky? I mean, we awarded Rocky. It was our best picture. So, and the alternate we had was Taxi Driver, which wasn't even in consideration for best picture by their standards. So that's crazy. I mean, it was in consideration because it was nominated, but like it was supposed to be either Network or President's Men. Which goes to show how stacked it is. Yeah, Dan, any last thoughts on 76 before we tease next month?
No, it's just I just feel like there's a connection between these 5 movies, and if anybody's out there wanting to watch a slate of Best Picture nominated films, watch these 5. Watch these 5. You'll see the connection between the locations and the types of movies and the types of stories that they're telling, and it's really a dichotomy of what the 70s were all about and why the 70s to me is the greatest decade of movies in the history of movies. It's just, to me, I will stand by that.
Yeah. And we still have some heavy hitting years to get to eventually for 70s. We still haven't done 71, still haven't done 79. So I think those are the 2, right, that we haven't done.
I want to do 71.
We've done all the maybe 78. Have we done? I don't think we've done 78. I forget what 78 was. 77 was Annie Hall. 79 is Kramer versus Kramer, but I can't remember what 78.
Yeah.
Anyone know what 78 is on the top of their head? Dan, no.
I'm looking it up.
Deer Hunter. Is it
Deer Hunter, yeah, so we have to do 78 as well. So 71, 78, and 79 we got to get
love to do any of those.
which is going to be really
and
fun.
70, because we didn't do 70 either.
That's correct, yeah, and 70. So we still got a few 70s years left, and I know there's some heavy hitters left. Last Picture Show's in there. Apocalypse Now is in there. All That Jazz is in there. Fiddler on the Roof is in there. A lot of great films, so
French
I'm very
Connection.
excited. French Connection, that's right. So let's connect to next month, where we are continuing the year of the upset. We've gotten a third of the way through our 5 picture colors there, colored pictures right there. But we are actually going to go to a year that is interesting because it is an upset, but less about what it beat to win Best Picture and more so about what film wasn't even nominated at all, which is my favorite movie of all time, which is Singing in the Rain, which is 1952. So we are going to talk about when The Greatest Show on Earth upset movies like High Noon and The Quiet Man, and where Singing in the Rain was not even nominated. So that's going to be a pretty big year. Steven Spielberg's favorite childhood movie, we will be talking about The Greatest Show on Earth. But the slate for 1952 is, as I just said, The Greatest Show on Earth, High Noon, Ivanhoe, Moulin Rouge, and The Quiet Man, and not that Moulin Rouge, the other Moulin Rouge. So we'll get to see our second Moulin Rouge on the show. I think second and final for now. Yeah, very excited. I have beef with that slate for very obvious reasons. So we'll have to see. Do these 5 movies, are they truly better than my favorite movie of all time, Singing in the Rain? We'll have to find out. But I also had a little bit of a Mandela effect where I thought High Noon was a John Wayne movie this whole time, and it's not. So that was just my.
You didn't know that?
No, because I'm not a Western guy, but I just assumed it was a John Wayne movie, and I was looking at it, I was like, no, it's not. Dan, having heard those titles, I know you're not going to be on that episode, but anything to tease in terms of your thoughts on that slate?
Yeah, guys, High Noon is phenomenal. Gary Cooper, oh my God. Grace Kelly, Lon Chaney Jr., there's a comic book artist named Frank Miller as the villain. Frank Miller, it's different people, but it's different people. But Frank Miller is the villain, and he's nasty. A Quiet Man, beautiful movie with John Wayne, and Out in Ireland. Oh God, you're gonna love it. About a boxer, another boxer movie.
I love that.
But it's one of the few movies. I watch certain movies on certain holidays. I watch A Quiet Man on St. Patrick's Day.
Okay.
It's incredible.
I didn't know it was.
If you guys haven't seen these 2 movies, you are in for a treat. They are masterpieces.
I'll tell you, I haven't seen any of the 5, so I'm very excited.
Wow!
Yeah, I know.
Oh, man, you guys are in for a treat.
Yeah,
I'm not going to watch these for the first time.
You're good. And it'll be the last episode we record in this space that I'm in, because then I'll be on a boat for the rest of the year. So we're banking a few of these episodes. You're seeing this in May, I want to say, but we have recorded it in early April. But Chad, anything to depart us with in terms of next slate?
Yeah, I also haven't seen any of them, and I'm very excited to get to them because I have like conflicting thoughts about the new-ish Moulin Rouge that came out, and so I'm interested to see how the original movie was.
I honestly don't even know if it's based on the original. Like, I think it might be 2
one?
separate stories. It just takes place at the Moulin Rouge as well.
Because I don't. The original's not a musical either, right?
No, this is a historical drama about 1890 Paris. Yeah, I don't think this has anything to do with the Moulin Rouge. Just the same name, because it would be like if 2 movies were called like Eiffel Tower, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
That's fair. Okay. And one has an exclamation point, so it's more
right.
exciting,
Yeah.
maybe not. But yeah, High Noon is definitely one that, because since I'm also not a Western person that much, I'm fascinated by kind of like Westerns a lot of times because it's that big. It's a Western, right? So it's like, it feels uncharted in a way. For me, it's uncharted territory because I have a few that I know and like a few that I really like. And I'm just really excited to see because what was the other one? The Searchers?
Searchers is also amazing. Yeah, but not this year.
Was that what is the one that we saw? The
Oxbow incident?
No.
Yeah.
The Stagecoach.
Stagecoach. Thank you. I was trying to remember.
John Wayne, another John Wayne.
Stagecoach that I didn't really love, so I'm very excited to see if High Noon, because I've heard such other than Just Dan, I've heard like such great praise of it. So I'm really excited for that one in particular. But the entire slate, because I don't know that much about them.
I'll be shocked if you don't put High Noon as one of your favorite westerns of all time after seeing it. It really is an incredible movie.
All right, big hype going in next week. I love it. I just can't wait to be pissed off about Singing in the Rain not getting nominated the whole time.
That's terrible, though. I didn't even realize that.
Prepare. Yeah. It's because American in Paris won the year before, so they didn't want to give 2 Gene Kelly movies a nomination, I guess. I don't know. Yet they did 2 Iñárritus in a row with Birdman and Revenant, but I don't know. They're going to do it with Wicked as well, so I don't know. It's not up to me. I'm not the Academy. I wasn't alive in 52.
But that Show, though, is a great film, though. I will tell you that. I own that as well, and I've seen that. And that's
a Greatest Show on Earth, not Last Picture Show.
Greatest Show on Earth. Oh, yeah. Greatest Show on Earth. I mean, I own that as well, and I've seen that, but it's not as good as Singing in the Rain.
Yeah, well, we'll have to find out. Spielberg really loved it because it was his basis for The Fabelmans for the train sequence. So we'll see. We've rambled enough, though. It's 3.5 hours. We're going to let you go, audience, and we'll let us go because I have to go to sleep. But thank you guys so much for watching. Dan, really quick, anything to plug out there for you?
Yeah, well, I'm a film critic in Central Florida. I write for a website called FromTheFourthRow.com, where I'm the owner, editor, and chief and head film critic. Also on other YouTube channels, which I will not name on here right now, but I'm starting. There's a game show that I've been involved with for almost a year now, and we might be finally putting the first episode out soon. So that's going to be fun. Hopefully people watch. It's called Movie Mutations. And I'm dealing with film festivals right now. A lot of reviews coming down the pipe, a lot of TV, a lot of everything. I'm just completely slammed. But you can find me under my name, Dan Skip Allen, or DP Skip Allen or From the Fourth Row on like Threads and Instagram and Blue Sky and Letterboxd and Facebook and X/Twitter. All over.
Love it. Thank you so much, Dan. I mean, you're a longest running guest for a reason. I mean, we love hearing your passionate takes, and because these films are such a part of your DNA too. So it's such a great, you got emotional today, but I love that. It's because you care so much about the show and about us, and to give your time for 3.5 hours is a big ask of anyone, to let alone watch 5 movies. One of them being Bound for Glory, which is very long. So I do really appreciate you for all the work you put in. And you watch a lot of the other slates, even if you're not on the show, which we really appreciate as well.
I do my watch-alongs.
It's very humbling.
Do the watch-along. Once again, watch High Noon and Quiet Man and The Greatest Show on Earth again because I got to do a watch-along with you.
No, but it's very humbling, so thank you for putting so much time and effort into making our show great, because we really appreciate it when our guests give it their all. But, Chad, lastly, anything to plug? I'll put you up there so they can see your name.
Sure. Yeah. Check out Cinema Chad, where I rank stuff and do reviews and stuff like that. I'm trying to get more stuff to come out there as well. But we'll see. Just check it out. And then Welcome to Primetime is the horror channel that I do. That's about it.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. You'll find me here at the Dill Pickle Movie Network. I'll be on a boat when you're hearing this, so we'll see you soon. See you. Get it? SEA. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
And the winner is Rocky, Irwin Winkler and Robert Chardoff, producers.